has lightened up, which is great because this area is very much flooded. In fact, I want to show you right behind me. You can see there's a truck that stalled out, and we're seeing cars stalling out throughout New Smyrna Beach area. We were downtown. In fact, we moved our car because we were afraid that our news unit was going to stall out. And we know because of the conditions, if you stall out, you may not get help for a while. So we thought about that as well. We were like, there's no tow truck coming for us, you know, because we are still feeling the effects of Tropical Storm Ian. You can see this man walking down the street too. We are on North Dixie Freeway, right off the 44 to 95. So what we're also seeing is some power companies showing up as well. We know some people have lost power, but you know, guys, what we've been talking about all morning long is the concern about the high water. Volusia County deputies, we know, have their high water rescue teams deployed, and I was talking to them and they were telling me that they are going out to the extent possible. And of course, the sad update we heard earlier this morning was that one man has already died. Apparently, he was draining his pool at 1 in the morning. And, you know, when I read that, it really hit me because at 1 in the morning, I was live on air talking about the storm. Well, he went out during the storm to drain his pool. Of course, the waters were rising. His wife noticed that he was gone for a while, a 72-year-old man. And now deputies say he slipped on the slippery grass, fell into the canal, and drowned. So these are the type of things that we're warning you about. Officials here are afraid that the floodwaters could reach upwards of 15 inches. And right now, as you mentioned, it has slowed down the rainfall, but it was relentless all morning long.
Yeah, Nestor, not surprising at all to see him standing in that water, because it's the first time we've been with Nestor all morning. It's not been pouring there. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think this is going to go down as a very deadly storm. Nestor, the rain has stopped, which is good news. Just driving around, was it hard to navigate to where you guys are based on some of the flooding you've seen in New Smyrna Beach?
Yes, our photojournalist actually was telling me that he has a friend that lives in Edgewater, that the water was coming into their home. So we were attempting to go to Edgewater, but the roadway just would not allow us. The waters was too high. We had to turn back. And as you can see, I mean, look at that truck right there. I mean, that's no Mini Cooper. That's a truck. And it's stalled out right there. So
wow. Yeah, we were just talking about, Nestor, I don't know if you heard us, Sheriff Limo saying, listen, don't drive fast on these roads, because what's happening is you're distributing that water into people's homes, you know, which is really sad. The last thing you want to do is make somebody's problem worse.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if Jeff can do this for me and show this door here, but as people drive through A1A, the water comes up, and you can see there's sandbags protecting this business. This business actually has their windows boarded up too, which many do not, because the fear was not the wind, it was the rain. But yeah, you're mentioning it. The water does creep up into people's home, into people's businesses. So you want to go slow anyway, because you want to try to make it all the way around anyway. So that's the other thing. But for many people, I mean, it's just not doable. Stay home. There's nothing open. There's really nothing for you to get to anyway.
Yeah, Nestor, you may not have seen behind you, there was a huge power truck that came through there, and they were able to get through. It showed us how deep the water was, but that's what they're going to encounter in all of these counties, trying to get out there and restore power, and they're going to be dealing with flooding, and in some cases it might be too deep for them, but at least they got through where you were.
Yeah, you know, we've already been talking about it. There's already in the millions throughout the state of Florida without power. So imagine, there are so many people without power. There are so many washed out roadways. Their hands are full. It might be a while before not only electricity gets to you, but if you need help, if you put yourself in a predicament where you need help, who's going to come? They have their hands full as well, and they're trying to take care of themselves as well, all the first responders out here. So it's just a tough situation to be in. You just want to stay home and watch Good Day Orlando. That's the plan.
Oh,
we recommend it.
Yes, thank you so much, Nestor, and thanks for all the great work you're doing out there. We heard Nestor talking a little bit about things that are closed, and it's a good thing they closed the schools through Friday, because that was going to be a serious problem. So good that the kids are staying home the rest of the week. We want to bring you up to date on this. FHP Orlando just tweeting this out a short time ago. The Florida Turnpike shut down in both directions between mile marker Chris, 254 and 267. This is in Orange County. And the reason they shut it down is because they said there is significant flooding on the road, northbound and southbound.
Yeah, just look at this image. I mean, you can see a vast majority of that appears to be at least not ponding, but it only takes a spot like which is the closest far right part of your screen, which is that ponding. And that is a major issue, especially when you're traveling at a high rate of speed. And that's why they say, first of all, most things are closed, but do not get out and get in a situation where you potentially could lose your life. We saw this last night, a couple fatal crashes that may or may not have been tied to the weather, but you can even see with that car going by, the water that's coming up behind them.
Yeah, really scary situation. So again, FHP, look at, there's a semi truck out working this morning. It's probably somebody told him you got to get your delivery there on time, but it's just not worth it. So again, FHP Orlando letting us know both directions of the Florida Turnpike shut down in part of Orange County, and as soon as it opens, of course, they will let us know, but they say it will remain closed until the storm passes and the floodwaters recede.
On a positive note, this is probably the first time I've been in the studio in 6 hours. I've not heard rain up there. We checked in with Nestor. It stopped a little bit. So at least for the time being, we're getting a little break.
And that's the key for the time being, because we're still going to be seeing these rain bands moving in from the Atlantic and be very heavy at times. And as you heard probably on your roof, that it's falling at a rate of 2 to 4, potentially 6 inches per hour. So we take a look at all of our cameras on the roadways, and Florida's Turnpike included, that there is going to be a lot of standing water. And whether you're driving out on the roadways or just trying to walk through your neighborhood, you don't know how deep the water is. And I really think that that's the key from what we are seeing from all of our reporters out there. You do not want to walk or drive through a flooded roadway again, because it could sweep you away, and we don't want that today. And we're seeing a lot of water on a lot of roadways. I've been going through all of our DOT cameras, and there's just so many to look through, but it's not safe to go out there. Down near Universal, Kirkman Road, and I-4, we are seeing some of that flooding on this side of the road. Again, nothing shut down at the moment, but that's not something that you want to be driving
areas
through.
We usually say we're seeing flooding.
No,
there.
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm hearing from viewers who said we've never flooded before. You know, Winter Springs, Winter Park, some of these neighborhoods that are accustomed to, having, trees down, but maybe not rising water right outside their doorstep.
Yeah, and the water just has nowhere to go. I mean, we have our afternoon summertime thunderstorms, which you've been seeing for the last several months. And so with that already saturated ground and then more than a foot of rain in some locations, it's only going to go up.
So true. We're going to take a very short break and regroup here in about 10 seconds to get back going for the 8:30 as we continue to follow what is now a very bad flooding scene throughout Central Florida.
Fox 35 News starts now. Tracking Ian.
The time is now 8:30 a.m. That was the latest updates from our Fox 35 Orlando colleagues. At this time, we are going to switch gears and check in with our news partners in Tampa. They have reporters on the ground as we continue to cover Ian's aftermath.
Those roads are clear for emergency vehicles to get to emergency calls. But the dispatcher says that all those calls that were taken late last night and early into this morning are now being fielded and separated for crews to take care of. And this is what they told me about that this morning. Take a look.
They are separated. We do have dispatchers that are already designated for certain roles in there. We have some that have already been designated to take lists for power outages. They take lists for trees down. They take lists for traffic lights that are out. They call those separate departments. We have dispatchers who are already designated to coordinate with specific officers to work with those natural occurrences. We also have other dispatchers who are already trained to work with regular patrol units who patrol the areas along the city. And then we have our regular emergency call takers and our non-emergency call takers who just take phone calls all throughout the city.
And talk about. Now, I did ask them.
All right, guys, we are continuing our nonstop coverage as we continue to track the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. Let's go ahead and switch gears to our Fox 35 Orlando colleagues. It looks as though we have a live rescue taking place. Let's watch.
But you can hear the sound of dogs over here because it's, mothers, grandmothers, pets rescued. We have one family right here And I know that we were going to talk to Miss Lena, but we have some people who are just arriving, and you can get a sense of everyone who's here. Are you doing okay, ma'am?
No, she can't hear you.
Okay. Gotcha. But you all were just rescued.
Yeah.
How, can I ask you quickly? And I ask this with my heart thinking about you guys, because I can't imagine what you just experienced. Talk about where you just came from and what you just left.
Circle.
And what was it like over there?
We were deep in water in our house.
How high? How high was it?
Here.
Up to your thigh. How long were you in there?
2 o'clock in the morning.
And then who all was in the home with you?
My daughter Cassandra, her husband Leo, my granddaughter, 2 granddaughters, a grandson and 2 grandsons and a son.
2 daughters.
2 grandsons, 2 granddaughters, daughter, and son-in-law.
So about 7 people inside the home. Is this your mom?
Yes, that's my mom. We came here because she lives in a mobile home and brought her there thinking it was going to be safer, but no.
Talk about, and I know that you are getting your family together, but talk about how you're feeling now to get out of that situation.
Great. I'm feeling great. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and I'm happy that you're over here. Thank you so much. But you can just hear some of the stories. I talked to Miss Lena earlier. That was the family member who had arrived because her family was trapped in their home in the Delwood community. She talked about the toddler that was being held. She says half of the family has been taken to another home, another location. The power is out over there, and so they're waiting for the rest of the family to be transported. They were told by law enforcement officials that they want to make the priority families who are dealing with medical emergencies or families that have older relatives to make sure that they are first taken out, and then they're making multiple trips. I was told by law enforcement officials that they have several airboats and also a duck boat that they are using for these operations. And it's not just the Delwood community. McLaren Circle, they are also experiencing some flooding, and they had to cut the power lines before law enforcement officials could move into that area. And we want to be very sensitive about showing people who have just been rescued, because as I said, I cannot imagine what they have dealt with being in their home and watching floodwaters rise and then have to be rescued and really just grabbing what they could to get to this location. But we're so appreciative of people giving us a snapshot of what they have been dealing with. But I can tell you, with the families that are here, I also get excited when I hear that rumble, knowing that that airboat is about to come around the corner with more people who have been rescued and are now okay. I'm going to see if I can check in with Miss Lena again to give an update on the family that had the toddler, and try to check in with you soon.
Randy, great stuff out there. Clearly, this is a rain event and a flooding event right now, but we've been looking in the break at some of the damage that we've seen. A lot of things blown down, trees uprooted that we're going to also find today.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we're seeing trees down just about everywhere. And again, Randy is seeing images of flooding, but we are seeing flooding all over Central Florida. This is specific to Osceola County and the Kissimmee area, and she's been talking to some of the people who have been impacted there. But I'm getting viewer pictures from quite literally all over, near the Malt Millennia, in the attractions area, in Volusia County, all over Seminole County, Winter Springs, Winter Park. We're seeing these flooding images all over.
Yeah, much more flooding than damage, though. You'll see damage out there as well. A lot of flooding. Let's go to Jamie and Allison. And we knew these rain totals would bring this kind of flooding, and we're really seeing the effects now.
Well, yeah. I mean, we got a tropical system here, Ryan, and, this is what they do. They produce wind, and they produce a lot of rainfall, Allison.
Yeah, and with the slow movement of this storm, and it's continuing to make that counterclockwise wrap around our viewing area, that's why we are seeing so much rain. We saw a lot last night, Jamie, and a lot more is going to be making its way across our viewing area until that center of Ian has moved far enough away from the Florida Peninsula.
And it's that northeast movement now that is actually putting rain back in Osceola County down near Kissimmee. Let me update you now using our Fox 35 storm tracker radar. A live look for you right now, showing the wraparound effect there and how some of that is still funneling on down into Osceola County. We have an active active flood warning now. This goes till 9:30, so a little more than an hour on that. But you can see the scene here where Randy Hildreth is located. We've had, inches and inches of rain. That continues stacking up. I took this screenshot. There may very well be more than what you see here, but I took the screenshot about an hour and 20 minutes ago, and this is what our radar revealed that had fallen. Of course, there could be locally higher amounts as we typically find outside of that radar scope. So the outlook now, South Daytona, Port Orange to Allendale to Harbor Oaks and the Ponce Inlet and all the way up toward the Main Street Pier at Daytona Beach. Sugar Mill Estates, heads up. You got some heavy rainers there right along I-95. Here's 44, the gateway into New Smyrna Beach, the Smyrna Yacht Club there, and looking back up toward US 1 and the north and south causeways there right along the Indian River on the north side, and then back out toward Ponce Inlet. We connected dots with some heavy rain there. Also moving into El Cam Boulevard west of Alamana and out toward Orange City, Casadega, and Lake Helen as you work inland now across Volusia County. Heavy rain continues, and we pick up that Seminole County flood warning now. This is the Heathrow area, and some of this actually comes out toward us here at the Fox 35 studios, right there at Lake Emma Road. Of course, Markham Woods Road on the other side, and then that continues on out toward the Wekiva area right now, where we do have a flood warned area in progress. You can see here the images are Randy Hildreth live over in Kissimmee. People being rescued now from automobiles and homes as floodwaters have risen to just crazy levels right now, historic in some aspects of it all. But I'll tell you, one of the great things about having your own live weather radar, we could take you right there to the scene. We track it, we address it, and of course the warning's firing right now. So there is much ado to track as we take you on down toward the area now along 434, the Little Wekiva River. We had a sharp rise in water there. That too was at quote-unquote historic levels, according to the National Weather Service in Melbourne. So now we watch those floodwaters gradually receding, and they have as the rain intensity has loosened up its grip some. So our watches and warnings now, the tropical storm warned areas shaded here, and these orange for you. There are no areas with active hurricane warnings, so that's good news. But again, the bad news is that we're still in a warned area for tropical storm impact. So we look at Ian now. You can see here on the satellite presentation that we've got winds at 65. That is going to jettison out into the open Atlantic Thursday today at 2 o'clock. So we start to separate from Ian, and that looks like it continues with the tropical storm status. In fact, it increases some, just shy of a Category 1 hurricane. That's a strong tropical storm Friday at 2 p.m., strengthening over the warm waters of the Atlantic. Water temps still in around the 80, maybe 82 degree Fahrenheit mark, and the Gulf Stream current out there as well. So it looks like it's going to ride that up into the Carolinas and make its presence known with heavy rain. There's some tropical storm warned areas up that way as well. Want to give you a look here at the camera. Again, what you're seeing here on the side of the screen are rescue units down in Osceola County near Kissimmee. We had water rescues. The water packed in real tight, and they started that rising level there. So cars were stranded, folks were stranded. So that's what we're doing. Randy Hildreth, one of our great reporters here at Fox 35, is live on the scene, bringing us clear, concise reports as to what's happening. There you see Randy right there in the box. The outlook again at iDrive, 72. That's a north wind at 43. And we look at the canopy of impactful winds from Ian now moving offshore by 2 o'clock, and we track that out as it moves over the open Atlantic, destined again for the coastal Carolinas. Last check here on some wind speeds and gusts. Have a few inquiries on the social media platforms, so I want to let you know we haven't forgot about you out there. We've been juggling these flood warnings like crazy back here in the Storm Center. We have to address life-threatening situations, of course. The winds on the mind of many. So we show you 43 sustained Orlando, that latest gust at 62 miles per hour, 55 at Sanford, sustained 39, and Daytona Beach, a latest wind gust as of late, most recent at 69 miles per hour, and a sustained wind there at around 55. I want to head on over to Allison Gargaro now. She's monitoring our Fox weather alerts board. Allison, much to do here in Central Florida with the flood threat unfolding, and you've got information on that right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do want to bring you an update. So we are looking at a flash flood warning now in Lake County, Orange County, Seminole County, as well as Volusia counties. That is in effect until 12:15 this afternoon. So we've been talking about how likely that these flash flood warnings would be extended, and we are seeing just that. A few others that will be expiring anywhere from 8:45 until 10 o'clock this morning, but we could be seeing those extended as well. So even though you might be hearing a lull in the rain, which we're hearing right on our Fox 35 studios here. Want to let you know that more rain could be on the way. So let's actually take you out into what we are seeing. Some heavy rain that's still offshore of Volusia County, but that's going to be making its way across the interior. So let's zoom you right on into Daytona Beach, Port Orange, Ponce Inlet, New Smyrna Beach. It looks like it's just light to moderate rain right now, but you can see some of that red, those heavier bands that are moving in. And if we actually take you into our rainfall rate, you can see just how fast and how much rain could be falling at a rate of 2.3 inches per hour just to the west of I-95 there. And in DeLand, it's just under an inch per hour. So it could be light in some locations, but please do not let your guard down. We have seen a lot of rain in a very short amount of time. And as we head throughout the afternoon hours today, and we do actually see some of that rain start to push offshore into the Atlantic, you can see a lot has fallen in the path of Ian. But if I take you into our rain outlook, where we actually could be seeing even more rain throughout the afternoon, some of the highest threats this afternoon up near Palm Coast, that does include portions of Flagler and Volusia County, and then lesser amounts as you go toward the Orlando metro. But like we've been tracking on our very own Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, still a lot of rain to talk about. So let's take you right back in to our loop, and you can see that that center of circulation is slowly making its way through Brevard County right now, but that counterclockwise motion going to be bringing even more rain across Lake County. I do want to mention it looks like I-75 is that stopping point. So if you are west of I-75 up through north central Florida, that does include Gainesville, you could maybe be seeing some sprinkles, but it's really the heavier rain that's not only going to be pushing in to Seminole and Orange counties, back into Osceola, Polk. We're seeing that in Lake, and then eventually making its way back into Brevard County. So I know we have some reporters out there saying, hey, what are we going to be seeing over the next hour or so? Well, until these rain bands actually move into your area, things are going to be quiet, but where the heaviest rain is moving into DeLand, Deltona, and toward Daytona Beach. And Jamie, this is impacting the roads as well. So we're continuing to monitor traffic conditions for you. That's something that I'm watching very, very closely. Florida's Turnpike is going to be closed. That's from Colonial Drive to the beach line. So there's a lot of water on the roadways, and we always talk about you don't want to drive through the flooded roadways because you don't know how much water is on the ground, and we don't want anybody getting injured from not only the standing water, but some of it could be moving as well.
Well, hydroplaning, you know, big issue. You know, you hit that at high speed, forget about it, right? Out of control you go.
Yeah.
Allison, thank you. Great job today.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. Back to you guys.
All right. Thank you so much. We have been looking at images on Twitter of just the devastation that we're seeing. And one of the areas that's really devastated is the area around Lake Eola, where the water has come up and flooded the surrounding streets.
Yeah, not an area of downtown we often see flood, but that has been the case today, like so many parts of Central Florida. Let's check in with Dave Puglisi. He's been finding flooded street after flooded street. And Dave, looks like a lot of water behind you. This is Nestor this morning. He is with us this morning. Nestor, good morning.
Oh. Hey, good morning. Sorry about that. I was like, is it me? Yeah, so I'm at New Smyrna Beach, actually. And so just a couple minutes ago, you must have seen that truck that had stalled out. Well, just a couple minutes ago, right after I talked to you guys, he had a buddy pull up with an even bigger truck, and he was able to pull him out, at least to the side for now. So that worked out for him. And actually, I just saw a couple minutes ago a tow truck go by. So we might start seeing people finally venture out, but for the most part, officials say stay home. The floodwaters are very high. You just heard Allison say that we are still under a flood advisory here in Volusia County for all of the morning till noon, I believe she said. And so we've seen the water rise, because when we first arrived to New Smyrna Beach, downtown area, Canal Street, there was no flooding. The street was dry. By the time we were live on TV at 5 this morning, it was up to almost my knees, mid-calf for sure, and we had to go ahead and drive our SUV out before we got stuck. So we're seeing cars stalled. The New Smyrna Beach police and Volusia County deputies, they say they're going to any rescue calls that they're getting, if possible, whenever possible. So it's not a good idea to set yourself out there. Don't take, also, it's a good thing to remember is don't take resources away from those who need it, right? If you say, well, you know, the sun's out now, the rain's a little lighter at this moment, maybe now's the time to go outside. If something happens to you, someone else who needs help now has to wait down a queue, you know? And so, again, the big takeaway also is there's nothing open. Even me, I've been craving coffee all morning. I've been up since midnight. There's no coffee. There's no gas. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the situation as we see it right now. And you can see some folks trying to make the trek here. We're on Dixie Freeway right off State Road 44.
Yeah, just an unsafe situation. And these are trucks that are getting around. But again, as you mentioned, Nestor, where are they going? There's nowhere to go unless you're going to try to rescue grandmother from her house, right? But even then, you should allow the authorities to do it. And there's a sedan behind you that definitely shouldn't be driving through those floodwaters. You're going to get stuck. We heard Sheriff Chitwood say that they had these high-profile vehicles yesterday that would be out and about. Have you seen any emergency service personnel out there?
I saw one of the big vehicles that New Smyrna Beach rides around with the tires that are high up to purposely move around in floodwaters. They passed by. I'm not sure where they were going, but I've been in contact with the public relations officer, and that's when they told me, you know, we go out when we can, if we can. But another important thing to remember is most of the injuries and deaths that happen from a storm happen after the storm, right?
Yes.
So right now you're like, oh, it's moving away, you know, it's going away. Well, it's electrocution because of flooding. It is drowning. We already know a 72-year-old man fell into a canal and drowned himself today.
Yeah, Nestor, it's a great point. And probably a lot of those, you got to figure, people that have been through a lot of hurricanes, and they're all different. They all bring different things. And there's
a deputy
police
right
vehicle behind him. And Volusia County is such a big county. Their rescues are hard because it stretches for such a long area.
Yeah, just a short time ago, Nestor showed us the business that he's standing next to that had sandbags up next to the door trying to keep some of the rainwater from coming in. But again, as those vehicles are driving past Nestor, that becomes problematic because that pushes the water into the doors.
Yeah, I wanted to show you that again. We are seeing cars, and the thing is, because there are so few cars, some people with vehicles that are a little higher, trucks and stuff, they'll go quicker than they should, and that water will just come just like in waves hitting this wall above the sandbags. The water will go above the sandbags. So thank God these people went ahead and put the sandbags up, because if not, they would be filled with water right now. And you know, the situation can only get worse because we know that Tropical Storm Ian is moving so slowly, but this is his exit ramp, right? This is where he's where Ian is moving as he leaves. So the only reprieve, good news we'll have is once we're past this, we can finally say Ian's over with.
Amen. Nestor, great job. Give us a sense, just for people that are watching, how close you are to water right now.
How close are we to water right now, Jeff? About 2.5 miles.
Yeah, they're at 44.
We're about 2.5 miles, and I'm telling you, you'll see some places not as flooded as others, but you need the whole street to make it to the other side. So it's dangerous. The only thing I will say is that it is so much better now that the sun is out, because during our 5 a.m. Hits, when we were checking in with you guys, we could not see, and we didn't know where the street ended and water began, which of course is the other fear.
Yeah, no kidding. So Nestor, in Volusia County, I'm getting pictures from viewers in New Smyrna Beach. All their yard is completely flooded, water coming up to the door there. So this is a significant problem throughout Volusia County. And again, that flash flood warning goes till 10 this morning for Volusia.
Nestor, great job. And we'll find that in all counties. Osceola, Seminole, Orange. You are going to find flooding issues there for sure. Let's get to Allison now. We've talked about the rain. At least we've been now 2 hits in a row with Nestor where it wasn't raining. So that's at least a positive.
That is a positive. But as you can see, some of that heavy rain is starting to load up out over the Atlantic and push on shore. So just south of Daytona Beach and just to the north of Edgewater there, and continuing right along the I-4 corridor. So I do want to take you out to some of our cameras that we have across the viewing area. This is I-4 near the turnpike. Now, you can see that the wind has been moving the camera just a little bit. There is some flooding off to the side. I do want to mention that Florida's turnpike is closed in both directions from Colonial Drive to the beach line. So that expands quite a long ways. That's just how much water we're seeing on the roadways, and they didn't see that it would be safe for folks to drive on that. So we're watching that. For right now, we're going to send things over to Governor Ron DeSantis. So let's listen in.
And great Coast Guard, Admiral McPherson, and they've been so good in terms of what's happened. So as soon as that storm passed in the very wee hours of the morning, first responders from the local, state, and federal level descended on Southwest Florida. The Coast Guard has been performing rescue missions on the barrier islands consistently since the wee hours of the morning. We have Florida Guard assets on the ground participating in efforts, and we have our USAR teams who they got there even while the winds were going. They wanted to get in there, get on the ground across Alligator Alley, and they are performing rescue efforts, again, starting with those barrier islands, but also looking at the places that had the most inland flooding. And these operations are ongoing. In total, there's 28 large, mostly Chinooks and Blackhawks helicopters between the National Guard and Coast Guard that are already performing these active rescue missions, and there will be more air assets brought in as the day goes on. We've also been working with hospitals overnight who've been on generator power. We're in the process of evacuating 2 healthcare facilities to safer locations north. We're also surging more medical personnel into the area. As of 6 a.m. this morning, they have 2.02 million reported power outages, but outside of Southwest Florida, we may have additional outages from Central and Northeast Florida impacts, and people should anticipate that. If you look, there's 1.5 million outages in 7 Southwest Florida counties. Lee and Charlotte are basically off the grid at this point. Sarasota has 250,000 without power. Hillsborough, 222,000. Pinellas, 150,000. Manatee, 129,000. The Charlotte and Lee reconnects are really going to likely have to be rebuilding of that infrastructure. And so there are linemen, there are crews that are on their way down right now, but that's going to be more than just connecting a power line back to a pole. The other counties likely are not going to require the extent of the structural rebuild, but of course that's going to be assessed as the day goes on. But we do have huge amounts of resources that are en route and are going to work to get people's power on as quickly as possible. We've also had interruptions in communications as a result of the storm, particularly in Southwest Florida. We have 100 portable cell towers being deployed into the area, and those will be put up once it's fully safe to do so. FDOT is on the ground working on making sure that the roads and interstates are open. Alligator Alley on 75 across into Collier and into Lee County is open. The traffic is flowing. I-75 south through Charlotte County is open and flowing. Portions of Lee County, they're still looking at. As you know, some of those areas, Cape Coral, city of Fort Myers, they got really inundated and really devastated by this storm. So the hope is that all of 75 will be open, but most of it is open, and it gives us what we need to be able to continue to move supplies into the area. We have 100 engineers on site to do bridge inspections, and they work in teams of 2 as they assess the damage and they can ensure safety. Then bridges can be safely reopened. Now, of course, we do have reports of structural damages to bridges, such as the bridge going on to Sanibel Island, and I anticipate there will likely be other bridges that have suffered damage. But once bridges are inspected and determined to be safe, they will be reopened as soon as possible. But we know Sanibel Causeway, and we also know Pine Island Bridge. Those two are not passable, and they are going to require structural rebuilds. Right now, if you look in Central Florida, you're looking at potential major flooding in Orange and Seminole counties, St. Johns River, all the way up potentially into Northeast Florida and Jacksonville. The amount of water that's been rising and will likely continue to rise today, even as the storm is passing, is basically a 500-year flood event. And I know Seminole County has done evacuations. I know they've opened shelters, but we're going to see a lot of images about the destruction that was done in Southwest Florida, and obviously we have massive assets there. But people should just understand this storm is having broad impacts across the state, and some of the flooding you're going to see in areas hundreds of miles from where this made landfall are going to set records, and that's going to obviously be things that that will need to be responded to. We have, of course, massive amounts of food and water in the area. We're going to have probably close to 300 truckloads of food and water in the area today. Fortunately, most of our school districts will be able to reopen on Friday or Monday. Lee County is in a very difficult situation. Charlotte, so we're going to work with them and see when they can get back on their feet. But the damage there has been just so extensive that it's a very difficult situation. We have received a major disaster declaration for 9 counties, but we do expect more. I just spoke with the president this morning. He offered support. I told him thanks for this, but because the storm has moved inland and caused a lot of potential damage in the center part of our state, that we were going to be asking for those counties to be expanded and included there. But for now, we have approval for Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto, Hardy, Hillsborough, Lee, Manatee, Pinellas, and Sarasota. That will allow individual Floridians to seek individual assistance from FEMA. And that will be something that, as you have people that have been displaced due to the catastrophic impacts of this, you have power lines that are down, you have trees that are down, you have a lot of hazards right now. We do anticipate a lot of the water will subside in some of the barrier islands and some of the coasts, but some of those inland places off rivers and off these inlets, you're likely to have standing water there throughout all of today and even in the days ahead. So that is a hazard, and just please be aware that is something that if you weathered the storm to this point, going and doing and getting involved in that is just totally not worth it, and we want to minimize any harm to anybody as a result of what we're seeing right now in the streets. We have had 26 states provide support. We really appreciate that. It's going to be put to use. This is, I don't think we've ever seen an effort mobilized for this many rescues this quickly, but we appreciate it, and we will make good use of it. We want people to be safe. Those who are in need of life support right now, help is on the way. What they were able to do is look to see where the areas that were the hardest hit, and they've been focusing assets there. So obviously the barrier islands, but then you also have places along these different inlets and different rivers where people said the water was rising. They were calling into the county or calling 911. And so they have a pretty good sense of where those calls were coming from, and they're focusing their rescue efforts on those areas that were most hard hit. And again, I just want to thank the urban search and rescue teams, the National Guard, the state resources, and the Coast Guard for not waiting around, but going in there and understanding that time is of the essence, and we got a lot of people we need to help. For those looking to help, people say, what can we do? Well, the First Lady is spearheading our efforts with Volunteer Florida to activate the Florida Disaster Fund, where people can donate. It's much better to donate financially rather than sending items. We've got a lot of items, and that resources, financial resources, can really help people get their unique needs met. We have everything we need in terms of supply, but if you go to floridadisasterfund.org or text disaster to 20222, you can provide some much appreciated assistance. And if you want to volunteer, you have official volunteer portal at www.volunteerflorida.org to find volunteer opportunities. The impacts of this storm are historic, and the damage that was done has been historic, and this is just off initial assessments. There's going to be a lot more assessing that goes on in the days ahead, but I think we've never seen a flood event like this We've never seen storm surge of this magnitude, and it hit an area where there's a lot of people in a lot of those low-lying areas, and it's going to end up doing extensive damage to a lot of people's homes. So there's going to be a lot of work to do. Today is about identifying the people that need help, who may still be in harm's way, but also beginning the process of rebuilding some of the things that we need to have services restored, to have fuel, and to have the things that people need in terms of communications. I want to thank Kevin Guthrie for having these assets ready to go. We're going to use every bit of them, and we're going to be there until all the tasks are completed. So, Kevin, you want to come up and give an update?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, First Lady, for your leadership across the state. Going into a little more detail this morning, obviously, as Tropical Storm Ian continues to move across Central Florida this morning, we have damaging winds and extreme rainfall expected throughout the Northeast Florida and Central Florida area. I wanted to emphasize that the storm still poses a major threat to the state, including Central Florida right now and Northeast Florida. Orange County Fire Rescue is actively conducting 9 wide area search responses on the water for rising water in the Central Florida area. That is happening right now as we speak. At this time, the division has received more than 1,500 resource requests from our local impacted partners, and we have filled or are in the process of filling 1,300. As the governor said, there are 300 plus truckloads of food and water that have been loaded out, and they are mobilizing to leave to the Southwest Florida area right now. In addition to the issues with cell phones, we are deploying cell phone towers, as the governor mentioned, over 100 assets in that arena alone. We want to reinforce, and we appreciate the fact that we have received over 15,000 inputs to our shelter-in-place system. So we want to encourage you, if you are sheltering in place, or you know someone that has sheltered in place, and you know that we need to have go out and check on them, please register that individual or register yourself at floridadisaster.org/report. That's floridadisaster.org/report. We have made that more specific. Yesterday it was info, but we made it a little more specific so you did not have to hunt around for that site. So again, I'll repeat it for the third time, floridadisaster.org/report to complete the shelter-in-place survey. I want to reiterate that is not a replacement for 911. If you are in an emergency situation, you need to call 911 in your local area. Our logistical staging areas in Central Florida have all the additional resources that we need to respond. We have tarps, we have medical supplies if needed in those warehouses. We want to make sure that all the available resources can get to the residents as quickly as possible. We are obviously in a situation now where we are starting our 72-hour clock, and that 72-hour clock is that we search first, we secure, and then we stabilize. So that is what the focus of the State Emergency Response Team is going to be over the next 72 hours. Again, that is search, secure, and stabilize. I want to thank the Governor and the First Lady for their continued leadership and support. They've been here nonstop around the clock. And again, sir, I thank you for that.
Okay. First Lady.
No, I just want to say on behalf of the governor and myself, everyone here who's working at the Emergency Operations Center, all of the men and women who have not left since this disaster began, to all of those people across the state, our first responders, I want to say thank you, because the people across the state and the country have stepped up big to support our Florida Disaster Fund. So far, in less than 24 hours since we launched the fund, we've raised $1.6 million. I am in constant contact with two folks. One, the people of Volunteer Florida, to pledge that we are going to remove any red tape and bureaucracy from getting those funds deployed to the people who need them immediately. And then also we're working with a lot of businesses across the state to continue to build upon that. But thank you to the people across this country and this state for stepping up to help wonderful people who are in need. Again, there's a couple of ways that if you want to continue to donate, you can go to floridadisasterfund.org, or you can also text disaster to 20222. But on behalf of so many wonderful people, thank you for stepping up, and please continue to do so.
So we will be having all assets marshaled until the job is done on this initial phase. I may be able to get down today to help to survey and talk to some of the folks down in Lee and Charlotte counties. But those were massive impacts, and so we are looking at. Kevin said, these 72 hours very important for safety for folks and rescuing people that need that, and eventually bringing some stability. But you're looking at a storm that's changed the character of a significant part of our state, and this is going to require not just emergency response now in the days or weeks ahead. I mean, this is going to require years of effort to be able to rebuild and to come back. These are fantastic communities down in Southwest Florida with a lot of fantastic people, and they're very tough and resilient. Of course, they didn't ask for this, but they need our help now, and we're going to be there for them. And we understand that this is going to be a very, very long process, and we also understand that these effects are going to go throughout the state today, and you're going to continue to see effects from flooding and these other ailments, not just today, but in the days ahead. So thanks for the support for everyone around the country who's donated, and thanks for everyone who's volunteered the time, and thanks for all the other states who have lent their support to us. Okay.
There have been reports that maybe there were hundreds of fatalities in Lee County. Do you have any clarification on how?
So none of that is confirmed. I think what that is there were 911 calls for people saying, hey, the water is rising in my home. I'm going to go up in the attic, but I'm really worried. Of course, those folks are now going to be checked on. And so I think you'll have more clarity about that in the next day or so as they're able to go to those locations and determine whether people need services or are able to be rescued. My sense is that that water was very, very high. But my hope is that if folks did go higher, if they were there, it's not comfortable. But now we're in a situation. I mean, if you're there, they want to come get you. And so hopefully we'll be able to see a lot of those people brought to safety. And I can tell you in the barrier islands, I mean, there have been a number of people that have been helicoptered to safety. And it's great because, these folks sprung into action and they're doing it. We have had the 2 unconfirmed fatalities in the sense that we don't know that they're linked to the storm. I mean, our assumption is it likely is. And so basically FDLE will make that assessment and then that will be reported. But that's what we have. That number that was put out by Lee is basically an estimate of, hey, these people were calling, the water was rising on their home. They may not have ended up getting through. So we're obviously hoping that they can be rescued at this point. And I know the folks there locally, those were the areas that they wanted to spring into action to, and they really used the information that was coming, not just through those emergency calls, but also through signing up on the website to see. And I think it's safe to say, Kim, there's a pattern that's developed about where those calls are coming from and where those people are signing up from. And you can see the areas. I mean, no one wants to see. I mean, you see 3 foot of water in a road. I mean, that's obviously bad. That's going to do damage. But you see the places where the water was 4, 5, 6 feet in a residential area, and that is really the life-threatening situation.
Details of what you're hearing from Central Florida as far as flooding and other damages?
Yeah, this morning at 5:45 a.m. I received a phone call from Orange County Emergency Management Director Chief Laura Lee Avery. She's actually technically assigned to the fire department as a division chief over the Department of Emergency Management there. She called me to let me know that they were actively responding to 9 widespread areas along the Colonial Drive area, I-4, State Road 46 area of Central Florida, and that they were requesting assistance for stuff that we may have staged in Orlando. So very quickly this morning, our overnight crew sprung into action and started moving National Guard high water vehicles as well as other assets that were staged there for urban search and rescue elements, swift water elements, and they started moving into action this morning. I do not have a total number of potential saves that they have done, but what is linked to is the massive amounts of rainfall that are happening there. We were receiving reports that some creeks, tributaries, the area around the St. John's, headwaters around the St. John's area, and unconfirmed, may have been rising at about a rate to about 4 feet in a matter of hours. So lots of rain in the area, lots of instant action water rise. There's a lot of lakes in Central Florida, especially in that Orlando Kissimmee area. And it appears that these lakes were filling up and overflowing into the neighborhoods around them. So that's what is going there on in the Central Florida region. I will say, as a part of Central Florida and also as a part of Southwest Florida, do not come in and tour the area for damage. We have 20,000, 30,000 responders coming into area that need access to those roads. Stay at home. Do not get on the roads. Let the first responders have the roadways. Let the power crews have the roadways. We will get things open up exponentially quicker if we don't have to maneuver around individuals that are just coming into area to look around. So please stay out of the area, both in Central Florida as well as Southwest Florida. Let the crews get in there, do what they need to do. We're coming in full force. We've got a lot of people coming in there. We need you out of our way so we can get our job done. Thank you.
But also just note, I mean, as this exits the state, it's going to go into the Atlantic Ocean, and it's going to impact other states in the country. And so you're looking at Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they may be having impacts. This is just a lot of water, and you're going to have flooding in those other states as well. Of course, they're not going to have to deal with the catastrophic impact that Florida suffered on the southwest coast. But this thing is not done creating damage. I mean, this thing's going to continue to move. I know they've declared state of emergencies in many of those states, and they're going to have to deal with this storm, which is wreaking havoc across our state, but it's going to end up wreaking havoc in communities across the southeastern part of the United States. Yes.
Governor, you made a comment about a pattern for the 911 calls and the surveys. Is there an area that you're looking at that you can share?
So I would say, I think Kevin can come in and do, I would say, obviously, the places that got the catastrophic storm surge. So you'd be looking at the barrier islands in Lee, Charlotte counties, some of the coast, even in Collier County. And then you're looking at, as you go inland, in kind of that Fort Myers, Charlotte County juncture, where you've got the Caloosahatchee, you've got these inlets, you've got the harbor. Those areas, because the storm surge can come on a barrier island, it's there, and then that is just caught, the water's just building up. And so you see that they were absolutely consistent with Kevin posted. We have it in there in our room, the inundation map from 24 hours ago of what we projected. And what you'll see is some of those areas, you go inland even many blocks, and you have massive inundation that are off those areas. And so I think it was a pretty consistent pattern. And I think if you look at what's going on, it's going to be those communities in Lee and Charlotte counties that are close to those bodies of water that probably suffered the most severe flooding. And, there's people that had, the Coast Guard has had people that were in their attic and got saved off their rooftops in those areas because of the flooding. So that, I think, is pretty clear that was really that. But you also have, normally we would say, having 3 or 4 feet of flooding in some residential area was like a big deal. You see that in like Northport, I think I would say, in southern parts of Sarasota, but that's just a different degree than what we've seen in Lee and Charlotte counties. Okay, we will be back here likely later today, but we will be down in Southwest Florida as well.
All right, listening into the governor talking about just the extent of the damage that we are seeing here in Florida. He did speak to President Biden this morning. They were able to secure FEMA aid and assistance. He said that he broke down some of the counties that are going to get that, but he says we're going to need even more.
Right. So some of the counties he talked about: Charlotte, Lee, Pinellas, Sarasota, to receive individual funding from FEMA. And they're going to receive federal assistance as well for 30 days, 100% federal assistance for 30 days. Here's here's the other thing he said, Amy, and I'm sure it struck you as it did me. He said the historic impacts of this storm have never before been seen. Unprecedented events happening here in the state of Florida. He said this is an event that's not going to be over in a matter of days, in a matter of weeks, perhaps not even in a matter of months. We're talking a few years, right, to restore things.
And we saw that with Hurricane Andrew.
We did.
Of course, the extent of the damage that was done with Andrew many years ago and how long it took for them to get everything back to normal. And we're seeing some of the images coming in from Lee County, and they're just horrific. And we have learned that a section of the Sanibel Bridge, which there's only one, it's a little causeway that connects Fort Myers to Sanibel, actually washed away. So even if you were able to survive on the island, you now have no way to get back and forth unless someone brings you in by boat or chopper.
Yeah, absolutely. And our coverage is going to continue coming here in just a bit. We're going to toss to our 9 o'clock hour. It's 9:18, but we're tossing to the 9 right now.
Fox 35 News starts now. Tracking Ian.
All right, so we have been bringing you up to date. It is now a tropical storm, Ian, that is still sending buckets of rain down onto Central Florida and causing major flooding concerns.
Right now, you are going to be taking a live look at what you see behind me here, which is that radar that still has a ton of rain. Let's get on out to the experts now with a look at what we can expect. Hey, guys, take it away. Allie.
Hey, Danielle.
Good morning.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Allison, what a night it has been.
Yeah, it really has. We've been seeing so much rain, and still more is falling with some wind gusts that are rather large, which we'll be touching on here with you. But Brooks, now that this is a tropical storm, we no longer have those hurricane warnings.
Yeah, the tropical storm warnings are up, and we're having a full-blown tropical storm right now. The tropical storm warnings continue until further notice. In many communities right now, the wind is blowing harder than it has done the entire storm, especially on the coastline, Volusia County, northern Brevard, Seminole County, on up through Flagler County, gusting over 70 miles an hour. Halson will show you the latest on that coming up. Let's get down to the stats on this right now. This is the latest 8 a.m. advisory. It is located now just along the shore off of Daytona Beach. It has winds right now of 65 miles per hour, so it is now tropical storm Ian. And that said, the wind impacts out there are significant. There are limbs down everywhere. Some roads are very difficult to pass unless you've got a big truck, and even then sometimes people are getting out and moving limbs aside to try and get through some of those areas. By 2 o'clock this afternoon, it'll be offshore, probably located 100 miles or a little bit more offshore. So we're going to start to see the conditions, the wind conditions slowly starting to fade, but it's going to remain windy for the day today. It really won't be until later tonight that things start to really calm down as far as that's concerned. It'll then move north and then make a second landfall toward the low country of South Carolina, maybe near Charleston or maybe near Folly Beach, and then work up through the Midlands of South Carolina and eventually rain itself out in the Smoky Mountains, producing no doubt more life-threatening flooding in that area. So the legacy of Ian continues. It is not over yet. Latest is we've got this northeast fetch coming off of the water and flash flood warnings continuing. The flash flood warnings are going to be in effect for some time. And Allison, you've been tracking right now on Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, checking out the circulation and the impacts, and you've got our Fox Weather Alert System at the ready.
That's exactly right, Brooks. And we have a great partner with Fox Weather, and we get to see alerts come in directly as they do to our alert system. So let's take you into a few more of these flash flood warnings that have been extended. We've been talking about that. One in Volusia County now until noon, one in Seminole County until 11:45, and then we brought you this just about 30 minutes ago, a flash flood warning which does include several counties. That's going to be in effect until 12:15. The counties are Lake, Orange, Seminole, as well as Volusia. So we're going to continue to monitor things for you. I do want to take you out to a wide view of Ian right now on our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar. And I want to let you know it is so important that we have our very own radar with this blue sweep scanning those central flies. So we are giving you up-to-date minute-by-minute scans of what you could be seeing in your neighborhood. Now, something that I do want to mention is that heavy rain. And let's take you out to some rainfall rates, just how heavy this rain is falling. Now, right now, some of the heaviest rain is actually just offshore of Volusia County. That's falling at a rate of more than 4 to 6 inches per hour, but still some very heavy rain that's moving across Volusia County right now. We continue to monitor flood warnings there. Now, something else that I do want to take you into are some preliminary, and I'm calling it preliminary because we don't have any official readings on exactly how much rain has fallen within the last 24 hours, but we can give you a good idea. So let's take you through some colors on here. The purples is going to be 6+ inches, and the white shade that you're seeing on your screen is going to be 10+, potentially up to 24 inches. So that's more than a foot, if not 2, of rain in some spots. So just south of New Smyrna Beach, we've had a reporter out there, Nestor Motto, and you saw just how much rain is falling. So some preliminary reports of up to 15 inches south of Sanford. Just to the west of the 417, 12 inches, potentially 10 to 11 in Winter Park in Orlando. And we were talking about just yesterday how much rain we could be seeing. And again, on our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, more is going to be on the way. So let's take you right out there, and I can actually go street level to show you some heavy rain that is falling. If you live in Daytona Beach, or South Daytona rather, on South Peninsula Drive here, Port Orange, we're looking at State Highway 5A, State Highway 421. If you live on Hensel Road, Devon Street here, any of the areas that I just mentioned, we are looking at moderate to heavy rainfall. So when we went out to Nestor Motto, one of our reporters, he was saying, hey, it's not raining right now. Well, I want to let you know some of these very heavy rain bands off the Atlantic are now moving into our viewing area. We do have a live picture of Nestor's camera right here, so you can see the rain that is falling and the water is moving on the roadways. So we talk about how it's not safe to drive in these conditions, and it's really not, and not even to stand in it. You don't know how thick and deep that water is. I want to just take you out to the back end of this system. So Gainesville, you haven't seen rain in quite a while, and it looks like that I-75 corridor still going to be rain free, but anywhere out to the east of that, that does include Lake County. We're seeing some showers and moving into Osceola County, just to the south of Kissimmee. So Brooks, we are continuing to see these showers going through. We did want to mention that we're not necessarily hearing any of that rain on our Fox 35 studios right now, but there's still some very, very gusty winds, and I can actually take you into those winds. Let's see right here. Okay, base reflectivity. Want to make sure I'm getting everybody the right view here. Just how strong the current winds are. So south of Deltona, we're looking at 58 mile per hour sustained winds. Now just to the east of Orlando there, 54 mile per hour winds, 42 just to the south of the beach line. So you can see these are some of the strongest sustained winds that we have seen in the last several hours, and gusts are even higher in some spots. So I'm going to send things back over to meteorologist Brooks Garner to take a look at how much rain we actually could be seeing from here on out.
Yeah, we're still in the thick of it right now, especially here across the northeast coast, but other areas will see considerably less rain. Daytona, you can see another 7 inches. Palm Coast, 6 inches. Ocala Villages, you're pretty much done with the heavy rain. Might see another inch down toward places like Sanford, about 4 inches into land. So we're kind of on the tail end of the rain stuff, but as far as the wind, it continues. Winds at 56 now in Orlando, and gusts 24 in Melbourne, gusting to 58 in Sanford, gusting to 72 right now in Daytona. So we're getting these near hurricane force gusts continuing, and it is really, really rough out there right now. Let's take a look at the future winds. You know, as we head towards 7 o'clock tonight, we're still going to catch the tropical storm force winds here across Orlando and Daytona, and maybe some hurricane force gusts up toward the Jacksonville area. So this is really continuing, and we've just been enduring it. If you got power this morning, you're lucky, because the power outages have just been prolific. Looks like hundreds of thousands this morning are in the dark. We'll have another weather update coming up. We'll track these winds, talk about the rain, and our Fox 35 storm team coverage will continue. From this corner, back to you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Brooks. Well, we can tell you that right now, Central Florida is feeling strong winds, experiencing heavy rainfall as well. All of this from now Tropical Storm Ian as it inches into our viewing area. It is here. It is still doing damage.
It is a lot of damage. Many neighborhoods are being evacuated throughout Orange County and in Volusia County. We know that there are neighborhoods that are flooded there as well. Fox 35's Nestor Motto is live from a section of New Smyrna Beach that has seen a ton of rain. Nestor?
Yeah, we've seen so much flooding. Really, pretty much, my shift started at midnight, and from midnight to just about an hour ago, it's been nonstop. Let's show you what's happening behind me. Now, because of the high flood waters, cars have stalled, which I've been telling you about for the last hour. You can see that sedan stalled right there. Right behind it, you can see some first responders. I'm not sure if they're going to stop for them or if they're just heading to another call, but they're coming out as well. Everyone very, very worried about trying to get to where you want to go. But really, as we've talked about all morning, there's really nowhere to go. I'm camping out right now outside of a gas station, there's no gas. It's closed. Nothing is open, and the floodwaters are still very high. As Allison Gargaro was just saying, it's not over yet. We do know that the rain is going to continue as Ian makes its exit that we are really looking forward to. But for now, we are going through it. The rain has let up, though, as I just mentioned, and that has really helped, because we saw some residential areas that started receding just a little bit, just a tad, but it wasn't building. It gave it enough breather to recede just a little, and of course, that's what we're hoping continues. But besides the cars that stall because of these high floodwaters, even if you get to a point where the road dries up some, there's debris because right there as well. So it is just not a driver-friendly situation. Stay home, as we've mentioned, Danielle. A lot of the deaths and injuries that happen with storms is after they pass. This little lull, now people say, oh, we could step outside, and that's where you get into floodwaters. You can get electrocuted if you don't know where the street ends and the water begins. So this actually, while it may feel like the winds have died down, oh yeah, I feel safer about it, it's actually maybe some of the most dangerous parts of the storm.
You know, I got to tell you, and I think, you know, your situation is a perfect example of that, right? When we came on the air with you at 2 o'clock in the morning, there was no flooding, right? You were standing on basically dry ground. Just a few hours later.
There was electricity.
Right? Yeah. Completely saturated. You've got to worry about downed electrical power lines and so many other things. And I think that's really the message for folks out there now who may want to go out, as the governor said, and assess the damage. You know, Nestor, this is not the time to do that.
No, and that's why I'm here, and that's why we have Dave Puglisi in the Thunder Truck, and that's why we have our crew all over Central Florida. And it's because we can show you what's happening so you can stay home and stay safe. And of course, you definitely don't want to venture out and then get caught up in a situation where not only have you put yourself in danger, but now you've pulled away resources from someone else, maybe someone who's elderly or someone who needed the help.
Yeah, it's a really scary situation.
Absolutely.
And we're glad you're safe, Nestor. And of course, we hope that people who are around you stay safe as well. We can hear sirens outside of our Fox 35 studios right now, so we know that somebody is in need. And Nestor, we want to thank you. We can also confirm that Orange County Fire Rescue says that they are aggressively trying to evacuate flooded neighborhoods, about a dozen of them. So they really have their work cut out for them. We showed you images just a couple days ago of all of the emergency vehicles that were being stored inside of the Orange County Convention Center just for that reason, so that they can get to people as quickly as possible.
And that's one of the things you were talking about with the flooding. So let's get back to that severe flooding happening in Osceola County this morning. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth is live in Kissimmee. Randy, good morning to you. I know you're seeing a lot of vehicles stranded out there as well, but I also think you have the mayor with you too.
I have the sheriff here with me to talk about what we're seeing here. When we talked to you earlier, you told me that this is just one of a number of areas across the county. And give me those figures again about how many areas are experiencing flooding.
Well, when I was looking at the screen this morning, there's probably 40, 50 calls about flooding. I haven't assessed them. That's just people calling in. You know, this is just one of the larger ones that we got calls on when it started in their vehicles. We've already got the cars on the roadway. We've got the people out. People are trying to drive through this, and if your car is not, you see the size of this truck, you know, you're going to have a hard time. We're recommending people to stay home.
And I know we saw the cars being towed out of people who have been stranded. We also saw the families who, I think it's the Delwood Park community, who have been rescued. So talk about some of the rescues from homes that you have had.
What we're doing is we're going in there right now because there's some flooding, and we've pulled quite a few people out in the 5-ton, and we're just giving them, if they want to leave, they can. They don't have to. We're just, once they do make contact with the ones that don't, we're telling them don't drive out because you're going to get stuck, and they're going to be on their own. Because we're really sending these resources to areas that people really need the emergency attention, like medical or people having you know, any type of medical ailment. Right now, I don't believe that this is going to come any higher unless we get more wind and rain. So we're just hoping that people stay home. Don't try to drive in this because you're put yourself at risk and you're putting us at risk.
And in terms of the response, we have seen the duck boat. You talked about we saw the airboat, and you called it the 500.
We have the 5-ton truck. It's an old Army truck. We have the airboats. We have our community service officers taking people that they pull from the neighborhood here and driving them to shelters. We have everybody working, civilians, volunteers, anybody at the sheriff's office that wanted to work this this shift, other than sworn, they're mandated. They're helping out, and they're doing a great job. They've been working all night long.
And in terms of power in the community, you said that when we look at this community, you said, what about power outages?
You know, like you can see a little power outage here, but we haven't really had big main complaints of wide county-wide power outages. It seems like it's pockets. And as we continue to go on, they're going to assess this. And we're going to be probably closing this off here soon. We'll probably leave a law enforcement officer in the immediate area in case people do walk out, they need some type of help, but they can always call 911.
And you guys are wrapping up water rescues over here.
Yes, they're going back in right now. I believe they brought whoever wants to come out, and they've dropped them off here. They're taking them to shelters for now.
Thank you so much. And when I spoke to the sheriff earlier, he was saying that they did have law enforcement officials staged across the county in the community in terms of making sure that they had resources available because we saw those patrol vehicles that had been pulled from some of the flood water, but he was saying that they had people staged in the community so that they would be able to respond. We're going to move out the way because they are trying to get the fire truck out of here. We've seen fire, in addition, fire resources, emergency medical officials, along with law enforcement officials, but we're going to get out the way so that they can do their job.
Randy, thank you so much. And that's just a snapshot. This is what's so frightening is that's just one snapshot. That Kissimmee area is seeing flooding, but we're seeing flooding throughout Seminole County, Volusia County, Orange County, just looking at video on Twitter from quite literally all over Central Florida.
And I think that's what's so scary when you've got that kind of flooding. One of the things people want to do is to go out and to assess the damage in their own homes, in their own backyards, and that kind of thing. And we saw that catastrophic situation that happened with the man who wanted to go and do what? He wanted to drain his pool and ended up losing his life in the process. Folks, not a good idea to do that right now. But stay with us right now because our coverage continues right now.
Fox 35 News starts now. Tracking Ian.
And we are back with you for our continuing coverage on the aftermath now of Hurricane Ian. It has turned into a tropical storm, and it is still doing a lot of damage.
Oh, boy, is it ever. So, for example, the Highway Patrol, they have closed the Florida Turnpike in both directions from mile markers 254 to 267 because of significant flooding there. The northbound lanes closed from mile marker 254 to 267 once again, just so that you are clear. If you need to go in that area, you do not want to do that.
That's right. And joining us right now to talk more about it is FHP Lieutenant Tara Krasinski. She is with Florida Highway Patrol. First of all, we hope that you stayed safe overnight, but certainly some scary situations out on the roads today.
Absolutely. It has been very dangerous out there, not only with the winds, but the amount of rainfall and the significant flooding. And as you guys expressed, we do have the Florida Turnpike closed in Orange County. Traffic is being diverted southbound at the 265, which is the 408, to help with traffic to be able to get off the turnpike. And again, northbound, it is closed at mile marker 254. And in addition to that, the Central Florida plazas are also remained closed.
All right.
So, Tara, tell us what you are seeing out there right now and what your folks are seeing right there out now.
So right now we're experiencing some flooded roads, and our troopers are out there to try to help with clearing the roadway, and that's why we want to express the importance that everyone should stay off the roads. Do not go outside until the storm has passed, until it's been deemed safe. Never walk even on flooded water just because you don't know what's underneath there. Even 6 inches of water can cause your car to stall, but it can even knock you off your feet. And a foot of water can float many vehicles, and 2 feet of water can even cause SUVs and trucks to carry away.
Lieutenant, we're hearing that all the roads around Orlando International Airport are also shut down right now. Are you guys able to get around the airport? We understand there are no operations today. We know they shut down yesterday, but just the areas around the airport.
So there's many flooded streets here in Orange County, and we've been working with our DOT partners, our road rangers, and of course the sheriff's office and our city municipalities like Orlando Police Department to help clear these roadways. But that's why it's very dangerous to be on them, because we don't know what's underneath that standing water. It could be chemical, it could be debris, it could be down power lines, and that's why everyone should remain at home with their families in a safe place.
You know, there are going to be people who are going to be watching this and say, but I need to get out, I need to do this, I need to do ABC, XYZ. What would you say to people so that they know this is not the time to do that?
I mean, the images that you showed on your news media outlets and the various news media outlets in Central Florida shows the impact of this storm, especially with closing a major roadway like the Florida Turnpike. That does not happen often. Troopers said it's about 4 feet of water, and that's the reason why they had to close it down. And those are areas that typically aren't prone to flooding. So just imagine these areas that are lower level, you're not going to be able to make it through. And at that point in time, they're might not be able to get first responders to you to help save you.
Yeah, that's definitely the key there. Lieutenant, you guys posted a picture on your Twitter feed just a short time ago, and we're showing images of the video, sort of the upper view of it, but the picture you posted, you can see water completely flooding the turnpike, and then you can see a car that got stuck out there. Are you guys aware of anybody getting stuck in that water? Did you guys have to rescue people out of their cars, or what's the situation there?
Yes, Florida Turnpike troopers had a disabled vehicle that they helped get that vehicle off the roadway, but that is happening all around Orange County. We have troopers that are dispersed everywhere trying to get vehicles that have been involved in a crash to a safe location and making sure to attend to those drivers and make sure that our residents are safe. But again, that's why we express the importance that we do not want people out there, because it does cause scarce first responder resources when you're putting yourself in danger.
And that's the question I was going to ask you, right? And so, you know, if somebody is stranded because they've gone out because they've wanted to I don't know, try to go to the store or do something like that, and then they get stranded, right? And then they call 911, they may not be rescued right away. They may be waiting for a while.
Yes, because we want to be able to rescue everyone that needs it, but of course there's going to be levels of severity. You know, someone that is trauma or critical, they're going to be first priority, or someone that's been transported to the hospital, we're going to be able to respond to them there. So we are using all of our resources. Our troopers are out there going to different locations to try to help where they can, but let's help the ones that already need help, and let's not cause more people to be out there that need help.
All right. Well, we know that you'll continue to keep us updated, and the Twitter feed is super helpful. So thank you so much, Lieutenant Krasinski, for updating that so that we're getting these images right to our screens. Stay safe out there, and thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, we also want to give you a look at some of the flooding that we are seeing across Central Florida, and boy, is there a lot of it.
It is coming in like lightning speed. So here are just some of the videos and pictures we are getting from you, our viewers, and continue to send that. Here's the photo I was just talking about with Lieutenant Krasinski. You can see it's a little hard to make out, but there is a car up on the road, and as you just heard her say, 4 feet of water in some places on the turnpike, which is why it is now shut down in parts of Orange County.
You know what's interesting about that is you look, you see there's no water there, right? And then you think, oh, it's okay, I can drive through that. And then you get in and realize that you can't. And so you want to stay out of any type of waterway, any type of roadway that has water on it. Take a look at these images. This is coming out of the Vista Lakes neighborhood. This is in Orlando, and they are experiencing flooding there as well. As you can see, that's somebody's, looks like their front yard there with a lot of flooding.
Really scary. Another look at some video. This is in Winter Springs. This is in the Highlands community. And as you can see, all of that rain turning their driveways and the road in front of their homes into a river.
And this is from the Tapestry neighborhood in Kissimmee. We know Kissimmee has been very, very hard hit, right? Take a look at this. A family member of our WOFL staff, they are seeing this right outside their own homes. That entire neighborhood is flooded.
And a look at some of the heavy rain and flooding in the Gulfview neighborhood. This is in South Daytona Beach. You can see this video was taken right in the heart of the storm because that significant rainfall is still coming down.
And it goes on and on, Amy. Take a look at this. This is a look at some damages coming out of Orlando after a tree fell onto a house. New video sent in shows a large tree, just the root, just completely out of the ground, smashed through the home. It just happened in the corner of Wagner and Westbrook Drive in Orlando. And what's interesting about that is people say, listen, I'm doing everything I can. I'm staying inside. I'm parking my car in the garage. I'm doing everything I need to do. And then look what happens. A tree falls on their home.
Well, one of the things that we saw a lot in Hurricane Charlie is that these water oaks have very shallow roots,
yes,
right?
Roots.
And so what happens is that, and it looks like that's one of them. It's just those shallow roots. They just tip over in the wind. And sometimes it doesn't have to take much wind for it to happen. But I hate to see somebody's house damaged.
Yeah.
Well, Hurricane Ian made landfall, as you know, as a Cat 4, a very strong Cat 4 storm in Lee County.
And that area saw a lot of destruction. Fox Weather multimedia journalist Robert Ray gives us a closer look at a marina where boats were just tousled in the waves.
Yeah, good morning to you here from one of the marinas here in Fort Myers, and you see the devastation takes your breath away. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at a woman behind the camera right now who is doing this, because that's your first reaction to a scene like this. The storm surge and the hurricane winds from Hurricane Ian, creating these scenes here, huge docks that are concrete. The boats, giant vessels here that people owned, crumbled and pushed as if it was a toy on a living room floor, like nothing. These hurricane force winds that persisted all day yesterday and made its way into here, finally destroying people's property, businesses, vessels, flooding downtown Fort Myers. Literally, the streets in downtown historic Fort Myers at one point, not to use a cliche, but did look like a river with bars and restaurants just sitting right there. And now people here this morning, as the wind gusts continue, actually, and the system moves up to the north, are monitoring and coming out here, and the search and rescue teams are going to be all over this, unfortunately. On the coastline, about 12 miles from where I'm at, is where much of the storm surge occurred. 12, 18 feet. We saw homes over there with the water at the rooftops, and mandatory evacuations were in place. If people did not evacuate, they were in harm's way. We started our day down there yesterday in the morning on the Gulf and saw the storm surge come in, and left and went over the bridge and came to inland here 12 miles in, because we knew what was coming. And this far in, even, you saw the storm surge off of the bodies of water and the rivers here, and the winds that persisted. And Lee County officials making the statement that they think perhaps there are hundreds dead. We will see. Unfortunately, that may be true. But we may have hope. It may not be the case in the aftermath of this. Sometimes there are numbers that come out, and we need to listen to what they say, but we also need to take a deep breath and hope that that is not the case. But they will be putting drones up when this wind stops. They will be sending helicopters out. They will be sending boats out. They will be sending man and woman power on the ground to look and try to rescue people out that need help. In scenes all over like this in Southwest Florida, this is an historic hurricane that has come in into this densely populated part of America, a beautiful part where so many people from around the country have relocated to retire or even just a better life.
You know, it's so interesting. He said that because people relocated too during 2020, 2021, and now they're experiencing this for the very first time as well.
The time is now 9:45 a.m. We are continuing to monitor the aftermath of Tropical Storm Ian. We are taking a live now look from our news partners in Central Florida, Fox 35 Orlando, bringing us the latest. But at this time, we are getting some aerial shots from Fox Weather. They are flying, surveying the damage now that the sun is beginning to shine over a lot of areas that were impacted by the storm. At this time, let's go ahead and continue to listen into Fox 35 Orlando. We have Alina Shirazi. Looks like she is on the scene reporting on the aftermath as well.
Some of those barrier islands, we still are seeing a lot of flooding, and some of those warnings still remain intact. But if you take a look behind me, we are actually here at Cocoa, where a lot of people had their boats docked out there. People are coming out here to kind of examine the situation for the first time this morning. There's about, I don't know, a handful of people out here taking a look at their boats. Some people are breathing a sigh of relief, saying, thank God my boat is okay. Some of these people, they tell me, live on those boats. So you can imagine that is their home. If you take a look over to my right, this is the boat that we were showing you earlier. At first, we thought it might be abandoned. Here's the owner. He's inspecting what's going on right now. We were wondering if this was kind of pushed over from the storm, from the swells and the waves of Ian. He says he had 3 anchors inside of that boat. So either it was broken into, it drifted over. We don't know. She's still trying to figure it out. But again, this community coming together this morning, seeing what's left, seeing how their boats fared, seeing their houses, and just trying to just find some peace this morning, knowing that things are relatively okay. Unfortunately, though, this guy, he's going to have to fix his boat. So we're going to continue to keep you updated. Rain starting to come down, wind starting to pick up. We'll be here, guys.
All right. Thank you, Alina.
Well, there's some new video coming out of the Swan and Dolphin Hotel in Disney World. A viewer sent us some video last night where parts of the hotel were already flooded. We'll get to that for you in just a moment. But first, let's take a look behind us and get to the experts. We've got Brooks and Allie standing by with more on what we can expect as we move forward.
Well, we have had quite the night, and the wind continues this morning. Allison, we're just remarking at how on the backside of this thing, the winds are howling, the building whistling, and a lot of the trees are getting kind of loosey-goosey thanks to all of the really heavy rain that fell last night. The roots are not as secure, so watch out for falling limbs. Here's a live view. This is a live view from Daytona Beach. Look at this picture. This tells the story. It's that old phrase, a picture tells 1,000 words, and in this case, the video shows the full force of Hurricane Ian right now in real time live, just raking across Daytona Beach. The water is over here. It's just foam right now, and this is a parking lot with all the, of course, landscape palm trees, but it really gives you an idea of how the winds are blowing. Those palms are just completely pushed over to the side with the wind blowing through the crowns, and it's a demonstration right along the coast there that, in fact, Ian continues with its wind and its rain. It's not over yet. Let's take a look at another camera. So this is Daytona Beach, and there's another camera just up the coast. Let's see if I can make that switch for me. Here we go. Okay, here's a shot from, this is going to be Marineland, looking over at the water, and I know it looks kind of just like a whitewash because it really is. The water's down here, and the waves are just, it's like the ocean's white. It's just all froth. It's just that storm state of the ocean, and occasionally you'll see some darker clouds go by to give you perspective. I'll just step off the screen, show you that. You can see the land on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. There's looks like a little bit of some dune action. You can see the waves breaking now on the bottom. We got a little break between the rain. So Ian is just pounding the northeast coast of Florida right now, and the winds are really, really causing some problems there. And we've got some power outages as a result. 170,000 are now without power in Volusia County. And Allison, you know, we've been looking at the radar, and we've also been talking about some of these gusts. What are you seeing on your side using Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar?
Well, we are seeing very, very strong winds, Brooks. I do want to take you in. I've already plotted out some points here. So just to the east of downtown Orlando, we are looking at 48 mile per hour sustained winds, meaning gusts are even higher. 55 mile per hour sustained winds just south of Sanford, and then up in Volusia County, another 55. And you saw with that video that Brooks was showing out in Daytona Beach that gusts there are quite high. So let me actually take you into our wind gust tracker here locally, looking at 68 mile per hour winds in Daytona Beach. Just about 5 minutes ago, that number was up to 71. A little bit lighter in Leesburg, but not in Clermont, just shy of 60 there. 54 mile per hour gusts in Orlando. And then you can see where that center of circulation is, or in the eye of Ian, we're actually seeing much calmer conditions. So about 21 mile per hour winds. And I do want to let you know, if you head out to my Twitter page or Brooks Garner or the Fox 35 Storm Team, we actually shared what it looks like inside, and actually the sun peeking out just a bit, but that's not going to be the case across the peninsula right now. Let's take you into our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, and I want to let you know exactly what we are seeing as for rain. Some of the heaviest rain is offshore of Volusia County, but we are seeing that moderate rain still falling south of Daytona Beach through Port Orange, and then just to the inland of Ponce Inlet there, right along I-95. As we continue to go along that I-4 corridor down toward Lake Helen, as well as Orange City, still going to be seeing some rain out there. Now, yes, it's not heavy at the moment, but updating the Fox 35 Storm Team on these flash flood warnings, and they will likely continue as we head throughout the next several hours. This flash flood warning in Volusia County is in effect until noon today, and then the flash flood warning that includes Lake Orange, Seminole, as well as Volusia counties until 12:15. So, Brooks, we're likely going to be seeing these gusty winds continue, as well as that heavy rain, until the center of circulation of Ian actually makes its way offshore and takes all of its rain bands with it.
Allison, I found a camera in St. Augustine, and this tells the story. Ian is approaching this area right now. This is from the bay. You can see this boat moored and another boat here, and the winds are now just starting to pick up at that location. Ian now a tropical storm, but catching a wind gust over 70 miles an hour, and at times up to hurricane force on the beaches. Look at the seagull there flying by, trying to, see him right there? Look at this guy trying to fight against that wind. One of the things that got me interested in weather when I was a kid is watching a scene like this, but the seagull was flying backwards because the wind was blowing so hard, kind of like that one right there. Look at him go, trying to fight that wind. Come on, little guy, you got this. Oh, man. All right, so Yeah, weather is just a powerful force. This is a live view right now from Daytona Beach. Look at the palm trees blowing in the wind. This wind is coming off the water, and you can just see the waves of rain, the sheets of rain being blown along. The rain gets compressed by the pressure produced by these mighty gusts, and it almost kind of like obscures your view, and it looks like a ghost flying across the parking lot. And right now, they're seeing a storm surge with this of anywhere between 2 and 4 feet, probably on the lower end of things, but there's also some astronomically higher tides around this whole region this time of the year. So as the water is pushed ashore and the tides do their thing throughout the day today, we'll see varying levels. But when you see scenes like this, it's a reminder indeed that it is still happening right now. It's winding down a little bit on the southwest side of our viewing area, but certainly on the northeast side, it is in the full process. It is still going. And in fact, by 1 o'clock, these are future wind gusts. We could see gusts close to 70 miles an hour continuing at Daytona Beach. Sanford, even Sanford, like say along the shores of Lake Monroe, about 70 miles an hour. And so we're at about almost 10 o'clock this morning. So you go forward, 3 or 4 hours, it's still going. Orlando could gust to 56, Titusville 57, and this presents a whole new thread, and that is as we're out exploring and maybe emerging from the house trying to survey some of the damage, just be aware of what's above you. If you have some trees up there, these winds could still knock down limbs, but more so if you get a really good gust coming through, and sometimes you can get these rogue gusts where it might be one of these weird things where suddenly it's 80 mile per hour gusts. Things happen, right? It's a tropical storm, unpredictable things happen. That can push these trees down because the root systems are in many cases on the weaker side. Water oaks, for instance, have a really shallow root base to them, and so once the ground is saturated, they can get pushed over if the canopy is large enough and catches enough wind. Now, as we head through 3 o'clock, it'll finally push offshore, but look at the winds continuing. In Titusville, we could see gusts up to 72 miles an hour through 3 o'clock this afternoon. 34 in Leesburg, 33 Claremont, so things will start to wind down on the west side, but it is still going to be a full tropical storm, only slowly moving and sitting, by the way, over the Gulf Stream. So it's not like it's going to rapidly weaken. It's reemerging over the water, and at the very least, it'll maintain its strength as a tropical storm. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually strengthened just a little bit. One of the limiting things about it is that it will be encountering a southwest wind shear, so at the upper levels of the atmosphere, so that should keep this thing somewhat tamped down as far as any kind of, we're not going to see a rapid intensification, and the forecast keeps it a tropical storm as it makes another landfall up in South Carolina. But look at these wind gusts. At 5 o'clock today, 76 mile per hour gust in Titusville, that's hurricane force. So even with a tropical storm, you can catch these big gusts, and that'll be one of those things where, hey, you know what, it's coming in from the north, it'd be ripping down the beach. Might see lifeguard stands get knocked over if they're still up. 73 mile per hour gust in Daytona on the way through this afternoon. And even from our studios here in Lake Mary, we can hear that wind blowing. So our hurricane warnings are over here locally. It's now a tropical storm warning, but obviously we are fully enduring a tropical storm at this time. Allison, what are you tracking right now on our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar?
Well, we are seeing some preliminary rainfall totals, but I do want to let you know that we have a rain gauge here at Fox 35. We are located in Lake Mary, and just today, since midnight, we have received 8 inches of rain, and in total with this storm, 14. So you can expect some much higher values in some of these areas that are shaded in light purple and white on your screen. So, Brooks, we're going to continue to monitor this for all of the folks at home that are sticking with us here on Good Day Orlando. It's our commitment to help keep you and your family safe, and we will be doing just that throughout the remainder of the day.
Yeah. Allison, we're going to see this making its way offshore as a tropical storm. By 2 o'clock, it'll be located about 60 miles east of the Edgewater, Daytona area, and then working up toward the waters off of Jacksonville, making a landfall in South Carolina, likely as we get into the afternoon on Friday. We got more team coverage ahead, tracking Tropical Storm Ian. Back to you.
Great job, Brooks. Thank you so much for that. So we do want to get now to that new video I was telling you about. This is coming out of the Swan and Dolphin Hotel in Disney World. A viewer sent us this video last night where parts of the hotel were already flooded and conditions are likely worse after a night of continuous rainfall.
Yeah, they're still dealing with those images even in the light hours now. And just into the Fox 35 newsroom, Vice President Kamala Harris is addressing the catastrophic damage that has been brought by Ian. She just landed at an air base in South Korea and talked about some of the federal aid coming from the White House.
There's no question the images we are getting back are devastating in terms of the damage and the impact. The president and our administration are fully committed to offering and supplying federal support to the state officials. and doing everything we can to help them both in terms of recovery, but also whatever is necessary to ensure that folks are safe and out of harm's way. I would urge anybody who's watching this to please pay attention to and follow the directions and instructions of your local officials, including evacuation orders. And finally, it is important to understand that we will focus on Florida and we will continue to focus on Puerto Rico and the devastation there because of Fiona. But with that, we do want to just let everyone know that we're thinking about them and our thoughts are with them and support is on the way.
And as we've been reporting, more than 2 million people have lost power, and Ian has damaged the roof of a hospital's intensive care unit as well. The now tropical storm has brought significant flooding, and people across the state are being urged to find safety.
We'll take a look. We've got some new pictures showing Orange County's high water rescue vehicle en route to assist in evacuation. We've also got some video showing the Avante at Orlando had to be evacuated. That's right along North Cimarron Boulevard.
And so when you look at all of these evacuations and things that have happened, we can continue to take a look at this one. Okay, so this is at daylight hours, right? But this is Sanibel, the Sanibel Causeway. As we said, it is no more. The Sanibel Causeway is now gone. It has collapsed in parts after sustaining damages from Hurricane Ian. Several sections of the causeway are just completely missing. The causeway is the only way in and out of the island, by the way. And right now we can tell you that the Coast Guard is there looking to rescue anyone who may have stayed in Sanibel, including folks who may have decided, listen, I'm going to weather the storm and I'm not going to leave. Well, the truth is now they can't.
Right. That video that you were looking at is actually the Avante apartment complex where people were being brought out, some of them on stretchers, maybe people who have special needs or some other issues that are going on there. Orange County Fire Rescue working on that. We can also tell you that State Fire Marshal Jimmy Petronas has just announced they are sending 4 urban search and rescue teams down to Southwest Florida because, Danielle, you were just talking about Sanibel, the bridge being washed out, and just the significant damage that we're seeing in Lee County. The sheriff there saying just a few hours ago that they felt like there might be hundreds of people lost, but then Governor DeSantis came out and said they do know that they had 2 unconfirmed deaths. We, of course, know there's one confirmed death up here in Volusia County. Yeah.
All right, stay with us. Our coverage continues right now.
Fox 35 News starts now. Tracking Ian.
Central Florida is seeing the worst of Ian overnight, and you were seeing the worst of it right there, breaking overnight. 1 person is dead in Sanibel due to the storm. The sheriff's office says that the 72-year-old went outside to drain his pool at his Deltona home. In fact, this is in Volusia County where this fatality happened. Deputies say his body was found in the canal behind the house. Officials say the man was actually trying to drain the pool, and he fell down a steep decline to the canal, and the grass was very soft and slippery due to the rain. We want to also emphasize that video that you saw, that was Sanibel that we saw. As we know, parts of the Sanibel Bridge, no more. Parts of that bridge are just missing this after Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, Sanibel was one of the first areas that was hit by Hurricane Ian. It came in as a strong Cat 4. There's just one causeway that takes people from Fort Myers over to Sanibel and Captiva Islands. Those 2 islands are connected to each other, and there's a little bit of a waterway that runs right between them. But these are areas, these are high-end, condominiums. A lot of folks from up north, moved to Sanibel and Captiva and the Fort Myers Beach area for their second homes, their retirement communities. And so we're hearing that many people may have been lost in the storm. We are waiting to get that confirmed.
Well, so let's turn things over now to our weather team because they've got more on what we can expect as the storm progresses. It is now a tropical storm. That does not mean, though, guys, that the danger is over.
No. And Allison, I mean, we've been configuring some of these damage reports and, of course, the potential loss of life. Southwest Florida, a completely different world than what we've had here, but the damage here has been extensive and we've had loss of life here. The wind continues here on Daytona Beach, and it looks like we're not even done with the rain.
No, that's exactly right. We're going to continue to track a lot more rain that's making its way through the viewing area, so we're not out of this yet. And as you can see, the scene out in Daytona Beach right now is...
Yeah, this is the full force of Ian. We've got a live camera here. This is the Daytona Beach cam, one of our weather stem cameras. You can only get this here on Fox 35. The ocean's on the left and the inland's on the right, and the wind is just ripping off the ocean. Occasionally you'll see gusts here that just obscure the whole camera. Basically the rain gets kind of put together between the pressure waves of these gusts, and it just looks like a giant cloud crossing the parking lot. And you can see the gusts there. Sustained winds probably 40 miles an hour, maybe 45 miles an hour. It's gusting to about 70 70 miles per hour. So these are gusts that we're recording using our weather instruments around the region. And forecast wind gusts will be at hurricane force through this morning. This is 11 a.m. An hour from now, Daytona could easily gust to 74 miles an hour. That's an onshore flow. And you see this sort of wind barb, how it's showing it going right into Daytona and then wrapping around in Titusville. This is an indication that this is sort of the fulcrum of the circulation, where when tropical storms sort of morph and change shape, going from that concentric hurricane configuration to more of an elongated low, you get a wind out of the southeast, a wind out of the northeast, and they can kind of combine and create a little bit of a sting jet, as sometimes it's known. And that may be one of the reasons why we're catching some of these, I don't want to say rogue wind gusts, but gusts that are seemingly outperforming the strength of the system right now. And certainly at Daytona Beach, we've had gusts over 80 miles an hour, and the hurricane force gusts can continue. You can see the center of the circulation by 1 o'clock using our latest tech here shows probably off of Titusville, and as it moves away, Titusville could start catching some of those hurricane force winds. But our flash flood warnings continue. Allison, you're tracking that right now. It looks like the rain may be over on the southwest side of our viewing area, but it is pounding on the northeast side right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brooks. We continue to see some moderate to heavy rain that's moving into Volusia County right now. So I do want to take you in to the power of Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar. We can actually go down to street level. So all the folks that do live near I-95, that's going to be just inland of Holly Hill here. You can see LPGA Boulevard, Champions Drive. We have Madison Ave as well as Dunn Ave here. So light to moderate rain with some pockets of heavy is going to continue across the area. So I do just want to take you out to a wide view. This right here is the center of circulation of Ian. So it's starting to make its way out into the Atlantic, but all of those outer rain bands will continue to push on shore. So I actually want to take you county by county this morning and let you know exactly what we are seeing. Let's go into Seminole County. Some light to moderate rain is falling along that I-4 corridor. If you live in Oviedo or just to the east of it, you are seeing a lull in the precipitation for now. Likely going to be seeing some of the showers loading right on up. As we move into Lake County, you can see Umatilla, Eustis, Tavares, Leesburg, or you live in the Villages. This is just about the end of where we are seeing the rain from Ian. So I-75 looks to be clear right now. In the Villages, you're right on the cusp. So as Ian starts to move off to the north and east, it's going to be taking all of its outer rain bands with it. So we are going to start to see some clearing on the west side of our viewing area. But Osceola County, we were talking about you under a flood warning until, let's see here, 10:30 this morning. Right along the turnpike, but you can see still some rain extending all the way down to Yeehaw Junction. And then eventually this is going to be pushing up into Brevard County. So right now, if you live in Satellite Beach, Palm Bay, Rockledge, not seeing a ton of rain. I do want to let you know some more is on the way, but the heaviest rain does continue to fall in Volusia County. And let's take a look at some of those rainfall rates so we can see just how heavy this rain is going to be. In the dark greens, anywhere from about 2 to 3 inches per hour. And that's on top of all the rain that you already have seen. So I do want to take you out to our rainfall outlook today. And right where we're seeing the heavy rain in Daytona Beach is going to be moderate to high risk for that as we continue throughout the next several hours. So it is something that we're watching and tracking for you right here on Fox 35. But winds also going to be a big issue. So Brooks, let's send it back over to you. What are some peak wind gusts that we've seen?
Well, the winds have been excessive with this. I mean, we had hurricane warnings all the way up to the coastline. It's now tropical storm warnings as this is weakened below hurricane force, but it was warranted. You know, some folks were saying, well, wait a second, the forecast was showing this becoming a tropical storm over Orlando. Why would we have a hurricane warning all the way to the coastline? But we've compiled a list here. Yeah, check it out. Let's take a look at this list. This is the latest out of New Smyrna Beach. Peak wind gust of 86 miles an hour. That is a serious wind gust. Daytona Beach, 81 miles an hour for a peak gust. Melbourne Beach, same story, 81 miles an hour. You get down to Brevard County, still hurricane force winds. Orlando officially at 67 miles an hour, and Cocoa Beach, 67 miles per hour. These were winds over the last 12 to 24 hours. Our tropical storm warnings continue as Ian very slowly tracks offshore. Here's the future rain, and this is going to be right about now, about 10:15. We've got the bands of rain circulating around. It'll be generally lighter now that the center of this tropical storm, the center of Ian, is over the coastline. We're in what's called the southwest quadrant of the storm. If you are to break the storm into quarters, the northeast quadrant is really the business end of it, where the worst weather happens. You get the heaviest rain and the heaviest wind, and that's why places like Daytona right now are catching these big wind gusts, and it is just so bad out there right now. I mean, it's just blinding rains. Now, as far as where this will go as the day progresses, by 11:30, we'll see the circulation continuing. We'll have squalls, like rain squalls coming through, where it's kind of quiet and all of a sudden starts raining, and then the wind really picks up. It'll go from kind of you might be walking the dog, right, getting out real quick, not a long walk, but just to let them out and let them do their thing, and it's kind of calm, and then all of a sudden the wind starts going. So just be aware of what's around you when you're out and about, and obviously I'm not saying go out, right, but if you have to go out, put the little dog on the leash and walk. Just make sure you don't have trees where the wind's blowing from, because you might catch limbs and stuff. We've got active limb falls right now happening if you're out and about. I mean, you see them flying through the air like it's ridiculous, but it's a tropical storm right now, and we're catching these gusts over 70. Now, by 1:15, it's going to be sort of offshore. We're going to catch more of a north-northwest component, so that wind will change direction. Instead of coming in off of the water in places like Daytona, it'll be coming in off of the land. So that inherently will slow it down significantly. The wind will be subject to the frictional forces of the land, all the trees and buildings and whatnot. So if you would have had a gust of 60 miles an hour coming off the ocean, it'll be more like 40 miles an hour coming off of the land. So we'll see the winds generally decreasing. It's going to be breezy. It'll be windy today, but it's just not going to be quite as severe this afternoon as Ian pushes offshore. But notice how the band's continuing through at least 6:15 tonight, before finally on this Thursday night the rain starts to push offshore, and conditions improve rapidly. So, Allison, this is a long duration event. We've been anticipating it. We've tracked its ramping up, and now as it moves away, it's moving away very slowly. It's going northeast at 8 miles an hour.
Yes, that is very slow, and that's why we're seeing so much rain. And I do want to zoom you in now on our Fox 35 storm tracker radar to downtown Orlando. There's one cell of moderate to heavy rain, and you can see light rain extending out all the way to Princeton Street. But I just want to talk to the producers here. Is there any way we could get that video from I-4 at Lake Ivanhoe? Yes. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take a look. The road is flooding. You can see that there's what looks like maybe a right turn only lane, and you can't even see it because the water is now making its way over the road there. So it looks like this is actually the exit ramp to the I-4 express lane. So if you were traveling westbound on I-4 and you get off at the express lane there for Lake Ivanhoe, it looks like that is the intersection that we are looking at right now, and it is completely underwater. And as you can see, more rain is falling in the area. So this is why we say don't drive out on the roads, especially when they're flooded like this, because with the moving water, that could move a human if you're walking, and even is strong enough to move a vehicle. So we do continue to track some very heavy rain there. We do want to take you out to what we are seeing across the area. So as you can see in that picture, downtown Orlando looks like it's just some light rain, but that doesn't mean that we are still not seeing flooding conditions in that area. So we're going to be watching this very, very closely for you. I do want to take you out to our Fox Weather Alert System. These are our partners out at Fox Weather. And what we get to see is all of the flash flood warnings, really anything that's happening across the country, but these are the biggest warnings that we're looking at. Flash flood warning in Volusia County till noon. All morning long, we have been showing you the radar out there. One of our reporters, Nestor Mato, was out. You saw just how much rain that there was in the area, as well as those gusty winds. We're looking at a flash flood warning in Seminole County until 11:45, another in Lake Orange, Seminole, as well as Volusia till 12:15, and then some that are set to expire by 10:30, and then a few others for the next hour or so. So it's something that we're going to continue to watch for you. And again, if any new flash flood warnings do get extended, and Brooks, they've been getting extended all day long, and it's likely because of conditions that we are seeing right now. These live pictures of the very, very heavy rain. I mean, blinding at times, and it looks like part of this parking lot is underwater.
Yeah, and it's interesting you were talking about the flash flooding, because another factor we hadn't touched on yet, but is a feature, is that we've got a little bit bit of a surge thing happening here on the East Coast because of this wind coming off of the water, and especially in the St. Johns River area, that entire basin. Remember, it flows from south to north. It flows from South and Central Florida up toward Jacksonville, kind of a backwards river, if you will, in the northern hemisphere. But when the wind comes in from the east, it essentially blocks the water from going out, and so it slowly backs up. There's nowhere for the water to go, so it starts to rise, and so the storm surge may be also impacting some of the flash flooding there, especially the riverine flooding happening. But yeah, this camera in Daytona Beach, palm trees are blowing around. It has been a wild scene. Let's take a look at what's going on right now as far as future rain. This is important because we're talking about flash flooding. It looks like for the most part, the heavy accumulating rain for the Villages and for Orlando is ending. We're just going to have that sort of wind-driven, very light rain. It'll still soak you, but it's not going to be the kind that causes acute, severe flash flooding. However, Daytona Beach, you're not out of the woods yet. An additional 7 inches is possible, and additional 6 inches at Palm Coast. The latest stats on Ian, winds of 65 miles an hour. It is expected to move offshore later this afternoon, and as that happens, conditions will slowly but surely improve. All right, let's look at the weather forecast. Our team coverage will continue on this side of things. As new data comes in and new reports, we'll let you know here first.
All right.
Guys, back to you.
Thank you so much. Well, we can tell you that right now, Central Florida is feeling still, right? Strong winds, experiencing heavy rainfall from now Tropical Storm Ian. It is here. It is doing some damage still, as we've heard from our anchors and reporters, as well as from meteorologists. So we've got our eyes in Volusia County right now, near the Atlantic coast.
And Nestor Mato has been in the elements for many hours. He's probably soaked all the way through, but he is live in New Smyrna Beach, bringing us up to date on what we're seeing. And Nestor, that road behind you has been flooded for quite some time.
And you know, so many roads all over New Smyrna Beach and Volusia County are flooded. And you know, when you remember yesterday we went to Buc-ee's Daytona Beach, and we were talking to people trying to fill up with gas, and they were telling us, hey, you're on the wrong coast, that, you know, the storm's coming to the west coast. But you know what, one of the first reported deaths that we confirmed was right here in Volusia County. The 72-year-old man who saw the water rising, so he tried to drain his pool, went outside, and then slipped on the wet grass and drowned in a canal. And so Tropical Storm Ian over us, you think, oh, it's not a Category 4 anymore. It can be just as deadly. I want to show you how it's looking here, though, because we've seen cars and trucks stall here this morning. I showed you a truck about 2 hours ago. There was a sedan that was right here. I'm at North Dixie Freeway, right off State Road 44 and I-95. And the sedan was just pushed to the side by first responders. It was some New Smyrna Beach police officers. About 3 of them came, and they went ahead and helped the folks, push them to the side. And Volusia County Sheriff, just about 15 minutes ago, asked everyone to just stay indoors. They say that their officials and deputies are on scenes of multiple rescues, like that sedan who was just broken down in the middle of the road. And so they need everyone to stay home so they don't compound the issue. They're even telling people, if you have minor flooding inside your home, don't leave your home. Actually stay inside, just because it is so complicated to get out to the streets. The causeways and bridges over to the beach side closed until further notice, and we know that at 8 p.m. tonight there is a curfew. At 7 a.m. last night's curfew lifted, but between the storm and just the weather and maybe the roadways, people have been staying in. I mean, yes, we see cars pass by, but it looked like people were really adhering to that curfew, staying home for the most part. Even today, most people staying in. One car drove by and said, hey, do you know where I can find gas? Because there is no gas to be found. Everything's closed. And I said, all I know is Buc-ee's in Daytona Beach, because I was there yesterday. And that's what they said, they were going to stay open. But yeah, pretty much that's the situation here. WashDOT roads are asking everyone to just stay inside. They say even if you have some flooding in your home right now, they say don't step out, stay inside. Do you see a truck trying to make that trek through the high waters right now, guys?
Yeah, such a bad idea, because as you know, once that water gets into your engine, it could completely ruin your vehicle. We're going to have probably, I can't even imagine, mass amounts of insurance claims.
Here's the other part of that. If that truck gets stuck, you're stuck. They're not going to come get you right away, because they have more important things they have to tend to right now, some real serious injuries that they've got to attend to. And so just if you don't need to be out, you really should not be out. Nestor Mato, thank you so much for that live report. You know, we've been talking about all of this severe flooding, right? So let's get back to that right now, happening in Osceola County this morning.
Randy Hildreth has been seeing that firsthand. She's been live in Kissimmee for many hours now, and not only vehicles stranded, people stranded, Randy, entire apartment complexes of people who are unable to get out, having to rely on rescuers to come and physically pull them out of their homes. Are you able to hear us, Randy? All right, I don't think she's quite connected yet. Looks like she's trying to get that worked out. But yes, we saw many families. We saw Wild Florida out there with airboats trying to help in that situation. We saw Osceola County with their airboats out, and then we saw those high-profile rescue vehicles pulling people out of their homes.
Let's get back to Randy now. Randy, are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, good morning. Tell us what you're seeing. I know that there are a few people out there behind you walking around. Have you seen any more rescues, and what is the situation like there now?
And so I haven't seen any more rescues, but in the last really 2 minutes or so, I saw a couple members of the Delwood community, a family walking and getting shelter underneath. I asked them as they were walking by how high the water is in that area, and a woman said up to her waist. So that is what she was wading through to get over here. When we checked in with you recently, we talked about and we showed you how many people had hunkered down under here who had been rescued from the Delwood Park community. A lot of people have since cleared out because sheriff's officials brought vehicles to be able to transport people to a local shelter so that they could hunker down now since they have been moved out of their home. The sheriff did block off this road here. He says that he doesn't believe that the water will get any higher than it is, but just as a safety precaution, you can see law enforcement vehicles parked right here, warning people you can't go too much farther down this road. In terms of the flood water that we're seeing, we do believe, just from what my assessment is of being out here this morning, it does look like it's going down. Again, the sheriff said he didn't think it would get any higher, but it does look like it's going down right now. It's up to my ankles from where I'm standing right now. And what we've shown you throughout the morning are the rescues, watching people come from around this corner, the Delwood community, farther down that street, but come around this corner on airboats and duck boats to be rescued. The very first family we spoke to said that there are about 65, 75 homes in that community, and the people who live in the middle portion of that street, they experience the most flooding because it goes down a little bit. And when I spoke to other families about the process of getting families from outside of this community, they say that if you live on the farther end, some of the cars that were lining the streets started floating, and it moved and kind of created a barrier. So some of the airboats weren't able to immediately go and rescue families. I introduced you to Ms. Harden, who talked about her family members that were trapped, that toddler that the family was sitting on the dining room table holding that toddler up. She was saying that they were trying to get the airboats over there, couldn't get that. They had to send the duck boat and then send it around because they were having trouble getting over there. But one of the things that the sheriff's office officials have said is that this is some of the worst that they've seen. They have about over 25 areas in Osceola County that have experienced some flooding, streets and also neighborhoods. And the big message that he has given today is that stay home if you're home. And Nestor talked about law enforcement officials in his area saying if you're experiencing just a little bit of flooding, if you can, stay home so that they can keep these resources available to help other people. I'll go ahead and send it back to you live. Randy Hildreth, Fox 35 News.
All right, Randy, thank you. You have so many people we were talking about just really in their darkest hour, you know, trying to just get through what has become really catastrophic damage throughout Central Florida.
And if it's your home, it is catastrophic.
Sure.
Randy, is Randy still with us?
No, she's gone.
Oh, I wanted to ask her about a family there who had reached out on Twitter. Hopefully we'll get Randy back again, and I do want to ask her about that. But let's talk about Ian now dumping, several inches of rainwater all over Central Florida.
First responders have been coming to the rescue of those families, many of them stranded in floodwaters. Orange County Fire Rescue helping people out of their homes in the Rio Pinar neighborhood. They had to use boats to get in there. Firefighters carrying people out in their arms in many cases, trying to save them. They have been working all night long to rescue people out of some of these neighborhoods across the county.
We have over a dozen specific neighborhoods in Orange County that the Fire Rescue Department is already in, has been in all night, helping residents who are experiencing the rain, experiencing the flooding, to get out of their residence and either get with other family members or to evacuate to one of our shelters.
Orange County Fire Rescue is also asking people to stay off the road if you don't need to be out there so they can get you out of stranded floodwaters.
Hey guys, it's me again, your
Now we have a truck issue, and the guys are pushing the truck out of the bay. Because why, Chief?
It seemed like the truck was going to catch on fire. It was smoking, and we didn't want the station to burn down.
We're now unloading the truck.
Well, look at this. An entire house flooded in Naples. You just heard them say their fire truck started smoking, and so they pushed it out of the station in case it caught fire. The crew then spent several minutes hauling equipment off that truck through the floodwater back into the station. And you can see that water there, it is chest high.
Residents giving jet ski rides to firefighters en route to rescues in Naples. The Naples Fire Rescue posted that video to Facebook, thanking those good Samaritans who helped give them a lift again because many of their vehicles are flooded out. And as we continue to track Ian and the flooding, we've got some new video just coming into the Fox 35 studios.
Oh, take a look at this. Wind is getting stronger. Rain is heavy. And as you look at our studios here, we can tell you we are still under a flash flood warning. We do recommend you to stay inside, which is what we are doing right here in the Fox 35 studios, but that gives you an idea of just how strong the winds are here in Seminole County.
Yeah, thankfully that was a while ago, and now it is calm, no rain outside. We're starting to get a little bit of a break.
At least for now.
Yes, right. We hope the break stays.
We hope it does stick around.
Yeah.
All right, there's also some new video just into the newsroom as well. So let's go ahead and look at this time lapse as the storm made its way to Orlando. You can see the change in the wind and just how heavy the rain gets in this video. We are still under that flash flood warning, so be sure to stay inside, as we've been saying all morning long.
I just want to reiterate the importance of staying inside. I just heard from my friend Jason. He's a firefighter in Seminole County, and he says, Amy, if you guys are still on the air, please tell people to stay off the roads. Everyone is starting to venture out. They want to see the damage, but they are getting in our way. This is really important, right? Because they can't do their jobs if you're out, just trying to survey things for yourself.
And you don't want to say it's frustrating, but it is a little frustrating, especially when you hear from officials that we've just heard from on our air who say, please, we need to do our job. So we need to have the roadways clear so that we can get out and make the rescues and to do the assessments that we need to do to keep you safe. And so if you go out before they go out and now they've got to rescue you, you are keeping those resources away from people who really need it.
So please do your due diligence, stay indoors, and if you want to venture around your yard, of course, that's fine, but even that could be a little dangerous,
Best
so be
thing to
careful.
do is just watch us, because we're doing it all for you, right? So we appreciate you staying with us right here on Fox 35 as we continue to track what is now Tropical Storm Ian. Flooding is now making its way to East Orlando.
We've got some new video that is exclusive showing Fox 35 some of the major flooding that we have seen. This is in the Lee Vista neighborhood. This was taken last night when it was still dark. We are under a flash flood warning, as we have been talking about, and that has continued on throughout the morning. I think it has actually expired for most of us, but I'll check in with Brooks and Allie on that. The last flash flood warning we had was supposed to be through 10 o'clock this morning in Volusia County, so we'll double check and see if those flash flood warnings are still in place. But here's the thing. Areas are still flooded, regardless of whether the warnings are in place.
We've been seeing that in the live shots that we've been viewing, that there are some real floods still happening, and there are some real images still coming out of Fort Myers this morning as well. So take a look at this. This is downtown, the area downtown. They're also known locally as the River District. Boy, oh boy, is it a river indeed. That area is right next to the river, where some of that river's water has flown into the streets there, creating quite the scene in that area. You can only imagine those businesses are going to be completely flooded in that particular area.
Yeah, urban search and rescue crews have been deployed in Lee County because we just heard from State Fire Marshal Jimmy Petronos. He says there are many people who still need to be rescued out of their homes. They saw storm surge anywhere from 12 to 18 feet, and that is why many of these streets that have not seen water probably ever, in some cases, are now flooded this morning.
There is a phoner now with the South Daytona Police that we do want to get to right now to find out what is happening in that area. Good morning to you. Can you hear us?
Good morning. I can.
Brian, it is so good to hear from you. Amy, go ahead. I'll let you ask.
Well, Brian, we just were hearing from Sheriff Chitwood not too long ago, and he's pretty angry that there's people out on the streets because there is a curfew in place for anybody that is out and about in Volusia County. What do you want people to know?
They need to hunker down. They need to get off the roads. Majority of these roads are impassable. They're going to create a problem for us as first responders trying to rescue them. We're making our own rescue efforts for other citizens that are in need. and they just need to get off the road. Go hunker down.
And I guess my question to you is it frustrating that something like that falls on deaf ears? Because, we've said it a million times here on the air. You are saying it on our air as well. But I'm sure as you get out and about, you are still seeing cars out and about, not necessarily because they've got someplace to go, right? But because they want to look and see what's happening outside.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I get it. There's a morbid curiosity to this, but we just got finished. The chief and I just got finished with a couple of our officers making a rescue to a family, and we ran into several people out driving around, checking out the sites. And to be frank, they need to get off the road and get to safety. This is desperate times right now, and there's no place for it.
Brian, give us an idea of what you're seeing as you're driving around. You talked about having to rescue one family. Are you seeing a lot of flooding and people in need of rescue?
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting calls, by the dozens of people trying to get rescued. Unfortunately, they're in locations that we don't have the capacity to get them. We're reaching out to our comrades with the sheriff's office to get the high water vehicles to them. But for the most part, unless it's an absolute dire emergency and we have the ability to get to them, they're just going to have to sit around and wait. The family we just rescued had a 3-year-old child, and they were in a location that we were able to safely get to them. And so that worked out well. But in the meantime, we're just basically telling people to lock down, and we're going to get to them eventually.
One of the other things I want to mention, and I've been reading about this, that, you all also have to make sure your own homes are safe. You have to assess the damage in your own homes and take care of yourself. And in some instances, perhaps your homes have been damaged or flooded. So how are you dealing with that now as you make your way out to help other people?
Yeah, it really is. We all have families at home that are, need us at the house as well. And we're split right down the middle. We're going, we're helping the city out. We're trying to help our families out as well. We're doing the best we can. I keep my fingers crossed and I pray to God that my house is good and my family's good. I've been in contact with my wife and my kids. As of right now, knock on wood, everybody's good.
Brian, we're seeing images. It looks like our Hard Rock camera, which is in Daytona Beach, looking down at the beach. And it looks like you guys are still getting some significant weather up there. Can you tell us what you're seeing?
I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I'm actually on Nova Road in South Daytona. We just got finished, like I said, rescuing a family, so we moved over to make this call. And, I mean, we're still seeing very, very strong wind. Lots and lots of trees down, heavy flooding. I'm hoping that it's going to let up really, really soon, but I don't know if you guys can hear it in the background, but these gusts and wind bands are hitting us really hard.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we did hear that sort of crashing noise behind you. We wondered what that was, and so that's just an indication of just what you guys are still dealing with there.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we do want to say is we want to thank you so much for everything that you are doing to keep that community safe, to keep the residents there safe, to keep your family safe. Certainly keep up the good work. We'll let you get back to work. I know you have a very busy day and days ahead. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome. And last thoughts, everybody just be safe and look out for each other.
All right. Thank you so much. Listen there to South Daytona Deputy Chief Brian Craig letting us know that they are still out actively trying to rescue people. I just heard from one of my friends who's a firefighter in Seminole County. Again, same thing. And they're saying people being out on the roads is hindering their rescue efforts. So if you don't need to be out, and you really shouldn't need to be out for any reason, please stay home.
And, people are going to say, but I do have a reason to be out, right? But is that reason good enough that you are putting yourself at risk and then that you're putting the lives of others at risk? So think about that before you head out on the roadways, which is something that we've seen. Look at Daytona Beach. I mean, they are still dealing, right, with heavy wind. They're still dealing with rain there. And you still have officials who are going out and making these rescues. So please be cognizant of that before you decide that you need to get out to the store, which are probably not even open today, right, or to do anything. It's best to probably stay at home.
Yeah, most restaurants and stores will not be open. And you can see on the radar behind us the way that these hurricanes or now tropical storms work is they continue to move counterclockwise. And so what's happening is that heavy rain is moving back around. And so some of the areas that thought they might be done with it could be getting more.
Absolutely. And we are continuing with more coverage right now.
Fox 35 News starts now. Tracking Ian.
And Central Florida is seeing the worst of Ian overnight. Right now, we can tell you that one person is dead in Volusia County due to the storm. The sheriff's office says the man was 72 years old. He'd gone outside at night to drain his pool in Deltona, and deputies say his body was found in the canal behind the house because what he did was he was trying to drain that pool. He kind of slipped down a steep decline into the canal, and the grass was really soft and slippery due to the rain. He ended up losing his life.
Yeah, just a heartbreaking story. We heard from the governor a short time ago saying that he was aware of 2 unconfirmed reports of deaths, but we've also heard from the Lee County Sheriff who said that he anticipates there could be hundreds of deaths because they have so many people who were caught in that storm surge and were in need of rescue. They do have urban rescue teams out looking for them right now.
And they'll be looking for several hours, if not days, for folks. And so we do want to welcome you back. This is the 10:30 half hour of a very special edition of Good Day Orlando. Let's get right on over now to Brooks and Alley. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Danielle.
I hope those numbers are, those estimates from that sheriff are not right. That would be a terrible tragedy. Any loss of life, obviously, but with numbers like that, it's obviously beyond sobering. This was a major hurricane for Southwest Florida, and it moved through Central Florida. It weakened to a tropical storm, and Allison, that's what we got this morning. We got big winds in Daytona Beach and big rainfall totals. So we're in the process right now where we're still in the thick of it. We've still got hours to go, but at least the worst here in the Orlando area is over, but it continues here along the coast.
Yeah, you can see that with our live camera right now. So let's take you right on in.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. So here we got the winds blowing. At the last check at Daytona, winds steady between 40 and about 50 miles an hour, gusting to close to 70 miles an hour. This live beach cam has been quite revealing of the true conditions there. A little bit farther inland, though, once you get, and this is a demonstration of the power of the frictional forces of the ground. Once you're inland, you got the trees and the buildings and whatever, and it kind of slows down those winds. This is a shot from the, this is going to be Volusia County, looking, I believe this is the Oak Hill area from one of the fire stations there, and obviously it just looks like kind of a wet morning in that location, but the winds are still gusting. Tropical Storm Ian packing winds of 65. The onshore flow definitely hitting these areas hard. Flagler County, do you see all this hot red on the satellite? That indicates heavy rain. Allison's going to show you that radar coming up in a second. The tropical storm located near Titusville now. The center of it will be pushing offshore by 2 o'clock. A slow trek northeast doing about 8 miles an hour. It'll then accelerate and make its way toward the same latitude as Jacksonville, but about 200 miles offshore by tomorrow early morning, and then eventually make a second landfall in the low country of South Carolina Friday afternoon. This will be tomorrow afternoon as a strong tropical storm, and that's going to bring a lot of flooding. This area is very susceptible from Charleston up through McClellanville. McClellanville is right here. It's very, very beautiful, but very, very low and a lot of canals, so they're also going to see inland flooding from the rain. But look at these peak wind gusts, 86 miles an hour at New Smyrna Beach. Hurricane force wind gusts. Daytona 81, Melbourne Beach 81, Orlando 67, Cocoa 67. And it continues. Tropical storm warnings are in effect until further notice, probably until this evening, and the rain will likely continue. The counterclockwise spin evident as Ian makes its way offshore. But we will find ourselves in the midst of these persistent squalls. I don't want to call them showers per se because they're squalls. What happens is it starts raining and then the wind picks up. You might have a gust between 50 and 60 miles an hour when before it was only blowing about 15 or 20. You catch a little bit of a lull. When the rain starts, when the squall starts, then all of a sudden you get that tropical storm force wind, because what happens is that all the while at about 5,000 feet up in the sky, the wind is really, really howling. It's going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And as the rain starts to fall, it translates that wind down to the surface. So that's why when not much is happening, it's completely quiet. And then all of a sudden you get these ridiculous wind gusts. Here's a live view from, is this Charlotte County now? So you can see the damage. Oh goodness, look at that structural damage there. The hurricane hit yesterday as a Category 4 in this area. Winds estimated about 150 miles an hour. So that's devastating. You know, that's when not just storm surge can knock down structures, but also just the raw wind if it's constructed maybe in a way that can't withstand that kind of just force. And then compounding that, if you have a push of seawater that maybe knocks down a wall or takes the garage door out, then the water gets in and the wind and the rest of the home becomes very susceptible. So you can see that just extensive damage there. Yeah, you can see that right along the water. So possibly there was some kind of a surge-related influence there. Yeah, you can see there on the horizon the boats and the debris from homes. So the cleanup there is going to be extensive. All right, let's talk about what else is going on here around the region. Our future rain, we're going to see between 3 and 7 inches in the Daytona area before this is all said and done through today. So it is still pounding rain in that area. Meanwhile, to the south, we're pretty much done with it. The Villages down through Orlando, we'll just have a couple of these squalls. It may lay down 1/4 of an inch of rain, maybe 1/2 inch of rain throughout the day, but the really big accumulating stuff is now relegated to the coast. And for that, let's go back to Storm Team meteorologist Allison Gargaro. Allison, you've been tracking the swirl and also the flash flood warnings continue. So we're under active flash flood warnings. What does that mean for folks?
That's exactly right. Well, we're going to be seeing a lot more rain in a very short amount of time, so that could lead to even more flooding than what we're seeing across the viewing area right now. I do want to take you out to a live look at our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar. Here is the spin of Ian. Looks like it is pushing out into the Atlantic right now, but I do want to show you just how far the rain bands are extending. If we can just zoom out just a bit, a lot of heavy rain still falling in coastal Volusia and moving into Flagler counties, but you can see some of those outer rain bands all the way up to Jacksonville as we speak. So let's take you in a little bit closer to Volusia County near Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach, right along the 44 there toward DeLand. We are looking at a lot of heavy rain that is still falling in areas that have already seen a lot of it. But I do want to take you into our Jacksonville radar so we can get a closer look at what is happening up in Flagler County. No active flash flood warnings now, but like Brooke showed you, they could be seen up to 6 inches of rain in total starting now, continuing through tomorrow morning. And you can see some of that rain is starting to push on shore. When we see these reds, that does mean that it is heavy rain. So we're going to be watching for that very closely. I do want to go in and take a look at some winds because they are strong. You saw some of the strongest wind gusts that we had across the viewing area were hurricane force gusts. They were more than 80 miles an hour in some locations. But let's take a look at current sustained winds that we can get from our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar. So it looks like just to the east of 1792, we're looking at 54 mile per hour winds and 56 just to the south of the 408. But I do want to share with you that the camera that we're looking at is at Jacksonville Beach. And I mentioned some of those outer rain bands already making their way up into that area, and you are seeing it right now. Not only are we seeing the rain up there, but also the gusty winds that we are looking at the moment. Now, I do want to take you into some rainfall totals. These are preliminary. We don't have anything official yet, but some areas shaded in light purple and white could be seeing more than 10, 15 inches of rain. So that's nearly a foot, if not more. And I do want to take you out to another camera. This is going to be at Lake Ivanhoe, just under I-4 there. And I say under because if you've ever taken the express lanes westbound as you're heading toward downtown, you actually exit under I-4. And that's exactly what we are looking at. You can see that water coming into the roadways. This is exactly why we say it is not safe to drive right now, because that water is not only filling up, but it's also moving. So that could sweep away a person, that could sweep away a car. So we really do not want to see that here. I do want to take you out to some current wind gusts up to 72 miles per hour in Daytona Beach, 70 in Orlando, about 60 in Sanford, 62 in Palm Coast. But Titusville, you're still near that center of circulation, so you can really see that those winds drop off. And as we talk about within the eyes of tropical systems, it's very, very quiet, very, very calm. So that's why winds aren't quite as high, but you can see right on the outside of that, they are gusting. But as Ian is going to be moving out into the Atlantic, it's going to be bringing a lot of those rain bands with it. So I do want to take you back to our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar and just take you county by county to let folks know if you do live in Claremont or you are in Southern Lake County. It looks like a lot of that rain is now going to be pushing off to your north and east. Now, there could be some lingering showers here. You can see just back out to the west, but there's nothing else after that. So if you live in Sumter County, right along I-75 and Bushnell, the Villages, a lot of that rain is going to be clearing out as Ian is going to be taking it with it as it moves into the Atlantic. But I want to take you down to Osceola County. Still seeing some of that steady rain right along the turnpike here. Now, Southern Brevard County, you're not seeing much, but again, Ian's going to be bringing these rain bands heading out to sea, well, toward the northeast. So we're going to be watching conditions very closely for you. Make sure you stick with us right here on Fox 35. Meteorologist Brooks Garner and I are here, as well as meteorologist Brittany Lockley.
Yeah, I mean, Allison, a 70-mile-per-hour gust in Orlando, like that's the biggest gust around the state. Looking at the state view right now, we're in the heart part of it still, even though it's making an exit. So Danielle we're just, Amy, we're going to have this wind continuing for about the next 12 to 18 hours. So we're going to track it for you here. We may have more power outages. If you have power now, make sure you charge your cell phone, maybe turn the air conditioning down to keep the house a little bit drier as far as the humidity in the house. And we'll toss it back to you.
Very good advice. You know, we were talking about flooding a lot, and I do want to get back to that because I'm here on the Orange County Sheriff's Office Twitter, and they say there are some of the roadways that are still flooded right now. So please, if you don't need to evacuate your home due to rising flood waters, stay off the roadway. Specifically, they're talking about Pershing Avenue, Glen Village Court, Palm Creek Avenue, Curry Ford Road, East Colonial, Taylor Creek Road, Conway, Judge to Hoffner. So if you do not have to be on those roadways, you should not be. They are flooded. So you'll get out there and you'll find yourself stuck. And guess what happens if you get stuck? They're not going to come out and rescue you because they've already warned you not to be on the roads. And they have very, very serious situations that they have to take care of right now and the aftermath of this hurricane.
And those are smaller roads. We also have I-4, which is flooded right now.
As
we
well.
have the
In
Florida Turnpike in Orange County. Both of those areas are flooded. So these are major roads that are flooded. And then in addition to the major roads being flooded, many of the smaller roads are flooded as well. One of the areas that is flooded is right around Orlando International Airport. And they just posted on their Twitter feed a short time ago that they are still assessing the damage at the airport. All of the roads around the airport are currently flooded. Of course, that means you can't get in and out to the airport anyway. So if you had a flight scheduled for today, check with your airline. The airport does believe that they will be able to hopefully reopen on Friday. They say as soon as their assessment is complete on the damage to the airport itself, then of course they have to get the flooding to recede on the roads around it.
And speaking of major flooding, boy, let's get back to that severe flooding happening in Osceola County this morning.
And Randy Hildreth has been in Kissimmee all morning long talking to many of the people who had to be rescued out of their homes. And it looks like the weather's starting to calm down just a little bit, Randy.
And not as windy as we've seen this morning. Still raining a little bit, but not nearly as heavy. In terms of this area, because this has been the focus point this morning, Orange Blossom Trail, where I'm standing now, the lane, this area is blocked off. The sheriff said that they plan to block this off to not allow traffic to move through this area. And then actually, if we also look farther down the street, headed towards Main Street, you can also see a law enforcement vehicle blocking that side. Now, this is the closest we've been able to get to this intersection where people were being rescued in the Dalewood Park community. When we first got here, we would not have been able to get to this point. This area was filled with flood water. The sheriff said that he didn't think that the water would get any higher, and that it seems to be the case. It certainly feels like it's gotten lower. And even this turn lane right here, the arrow, we would not have been able to get this far. And this is the closest we've been able to get to that corner that was taking law enforcement officials down to the Dalewood Park community. This is where they were coming around in those airboats and in the duck boat rescuing people. And we have seen a couple people really within the last 30 seconds, an SUV come down, literally slowly creeping, because you can still see that there is a lot of standing water out here, but slowly creeping out of this intersection to get out of this community. We did, within the last maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, I did see a couple walking from their home down this street over to this awning where people had been rescued and they were staging in that area. And I asked the lady, how deep is it back there? And she was saying, you know, when she was walking, it was at least to her hips. And so that's still what they're dealing with in that community. When I spoke with, and just to get an idea of the wind that we're